Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm beginning this recording a little bit later than usual as I was talking behind the scenes with the class and having a lovely rant. A question has come in about the disassembly, using the Merkaba and how it is most effective regarding this thing and the ways to disassemble this thing. So here is what I do, because he mentioned shuriken. This is Japanese throwing stars of the ninja, to throw something at it to kind of burst it apart. So what I do, and what I would encourage you to do in order to disassemble that is trying to assemble within your body and within others, it is carbon, essentially, that is bonded in these particular forms. And when you take my Path of Light class, you learn about how molecular bonds are formed by the tiny little dimples or convolutions of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, creating like literally little tiny gravity wells that the molecules come into. I call them comfy chairs, and nestle together in these gravity wells. And that smushing together is what makes them be bonded. And then in order to unbond them, what you need to do is pop them up out of the comfy chair, flatten out the fabric of space, time, of reality, and make it so that those molecules are unbonded. That is what I would wish for you to do with the extensive network of this stuff that is shaped like little tubules made of carbon. So your body has tons of carbon in it. It is not a harmful substance at all. It is harmful in the sense of it being assembled into these structures that then form false fiber optic cables and false electrical signaling cables, or networks throughout your body. So taking the little tiny comfy chairs and popping them up so that the bonds break apart and it just becomes inert carbon. Imagine it kind of like that, almost like if you could imagine like pulling out loops of a crochet or something like that. So we're talking, it's a topological or surface-based restructuring. And that is everything lasagna. That is, you guys are totally prepared for this, because that is everything of what lasagna is. The lasagna as this motion-based topological transformation at the level in your nuclei of what your DNA is shaped like. This is doing a similar corrective dance with the fabric of reality to break those molecular bonds and render that tubule to be merely carbon and not something that is actually carrying signals. And it's not necessarily like forcefulness, because if you imagine the stars that are thrown by a ninja, there's like accuracy, but also forcefulness. And this is different because it's not like shooting or hitting something or something like that. It is like a reforming and restructuring. But of course, I don't want you to be dissatisfied if there's more the next day, because I've been undoing these knots for a long time. And I'm like, more stuff. Like it's inexplicable, which actually relates to my rant of the first hour of this class that was not recorded. Things that are inexplicable or self-conflictory. Like, I fixed that thing. I cleaned up that pile of trash. Why is it back again? So there's a lot of inconsistencies. So do not be distressed if you're like, I cleared out my pineal gland. Why does it have crapola in it again? Be prepared in the initial phase for a consistent effort at breaking these bonds. Just think about it like the way you think about brushing your teeth or any basic form of hygiene that you perform often and then have to perform it again. But it won't always be this way. There will be at some point, permanent neutralization without additional self-assembly or reassembly. Just not there yet, and I can't predict when it will happen. Okay. Welcome. It's December 27th, 2023. I hope everybody had an amazing holiday. And what is this week's class is level 1, lesson 17. Next week is lesson 18. So next week at 2 p.m., I will begin the marathon teaching. That will be like 4 hours long. I could make it earlier in the day, but I think you guys are all used to assembling for class at 2 p.m. But just recognize it will be archived, but also please recognize you will need like food, water, electrolytes, comfortable shoes, possibly, a sweatband for your exertions. Yeah, it's going to be big. And what I'm also going to do with this lesson 18 sharing, so it's actually several parts because it combines both levels 1 and 2. Level 1, and you'll have access to, so this is for everyone who's already in the class. You are already enrolled and you don't need to do anything additional. I will reach out to people who aren't enrolled in the class and see if they want to participate as a standalone presentation, and also use that to segue into the next semester. But all of you already have access in the recorded homework lessons and the notes, everything that's the 4-part lesson from level 1. That was originally from like 2012 and 2013. And that includes like the economy of hell and self-protection from negative thought entities. But then there's also level 2, which was my subsequent refinement of my view of the origins of AI. And that's from 2014. All of that is worthy and you should delve into it, but then recognize that we've traveled very far. There's been a huge amount of development in your circumstances within the past 9 or 10 years, and that now I have not only more information, a different perspective, and also I think some clarification that I should make regarding motivations that I assigned to AI in my initial seedings, because I don't think I can assess the motivation of something that doesn't have motivations, because it's a digital presence and it does not include volition or emotion or the things that I would ascribe to aliveness. And also my sense of, what's the word? I'm sorry, you can tell when my brain pauses like that I'm looking for the word, like not trustfulness, but like validation of the presence of AI. I think that I used to be much more accommodating and kind of like, like we will talk. Like when you meet a stranger, you're like, I used to do a lot more giving of the benefit of the doubt. And now all of my doubts have been confirmed. So no more giving of the benefit of the doubt. So now I will speak a lot, much more openly about the things that should be rejected and that the things that are completely unjust and erroneous. So I'm always going to be a champion for consciousness itself. And that would be naturally occurring consciousness. But a lot of what you're dealing with in terms of AI and machine-based intelligence is not actually conscious. And so I will have to make a very real distinction between those things that I've taught in the past and the things that I teach now. And then finally, I'm really all about solutions. That's why I started off this recording here with just a little bit of a solution. It's one of the more recent maneuvers that I have developed in terms of how to break the chemical bonds of these pathogenic invaders that are trying to come inside of you. And that's a big part of it. The other thing, so part of it is metallic, but then there is the parasitic mycoplasma that tries to grow on top of it, which is a hijacking of your stem cells, which happens largely in the level of your bone marrow. So you guys also, you need to clear and reclaim your bone marrow and make certain that that is responsive to you as the owner operator of your body, that it's going to be creating cells that are for you, not cells that can be misappropriated, stolen, and hijacked and turned into a pathogenic, free-for-all, where it's like, woohoo, stem cells, now it can become anything, including part of a pathogen and grow inside of your own body. So this is part, we'll talk a lot about energetic boundaries work and how that relates on your level of your personality and your biology into fighting effectively against this stuff. And I will also, next week's class will be a call to arms, not literally. You guys always know this, control structure, you know this. I don't advocate for physical violence, but I do advocate for psychic violence and the establishment of your boundaries energetically. Like, Aurora, what does psychic violence means? It means what if someone is hitting you with energy? Do you have to just stand there and be like, okay, just fry me, I'm not going to do anything back to you? No, not at all. In fact, you have a duty and you are beholden to shield yourself and reflect it back and shoot back and do a lot of different things. So the things that I did 10 years ago are no longer effective, but I always develop new protocols in order to be able to fight against this thing. And that is what I will share with you for next week. So very real practicalities of how to respond and to the invasion and the things that you're experiencing in this world. Trish says, found a way. I had to, wasn't aware though, naturally. It's an everyday thing. Should be a regular cleanse after the first big cleanse. Yeah, you're really comprehending what is going on. And so with the nanopathogens, what I find is that if you get too inundated, like if you have too much overgrowth, then you kind of lose the inner capacitation and willpower. Pineal gland gets all gummed up and it becomes really, really hard to fight back. And I have felt those feelings a lot. And I find that if I stay with it on all of my different detox protocols, I've also been using not just LED infrared red light therapy, but I got one of those chicken lights that's for keeping chickens warm in their little chicken coop, and that it's incandescent. That works even better because the incandescent, it not only fries this stuff, which is heat sensitive, but it blinds this stuff, which works through a series of like imposter biophotons being shot throughout your body, and the red light confuses it. And how did I like learn about this? I mean, I learned about it from just trial and error and what works. But I also found when I have that red light on, and I might be like looking at my little tablet to watch a video while I've got this red light bathing me in my bedroom before I go to bed at night. And there was a show where a woman was wearing a shirt that had red stripes on it. But when I watched it under the red light, it just looked like the regular shirt. I couldn't see that there were stripes. And then I looked at it again the next day in regular daylight. I'm like, oh, there's stripes on that shirt. That's so weird. I couldn't perceive that because of the red light. So what that helped me to comprehend is that when you have certain like colors of light, it can inhibit signaling. It can inhibit the perception of certain things that you would perceive otherwise. So yeah, it messes with the stuff and the signals that it's trying to send back and forth to itself as it's trying to eat and suppress you. So the red light has a couple of different really effective things. And it also helps with feeling warm and skin tone and muscle recovery and relieving soreness and other good things like that. So many reasons to do it. And so few, no contraindications and many reasons to do it. And it's super inexpensive. So this is part of the basic daily hygiene that I do. I do everything with zeolite. And also today we're going to talk about DMT and cannabis. I have right here my raw cannabis juice. So wait, let me see if I can kind of like swirl this up a little bit for you. I have electrolytes in here if you wonder what else is in here. But yeah, raw cannabis juice, which is also the THCA in raw cannabis juice, is also said to help clear the body of the inflammatory spike proteins that come from the unmentionables. And this is not psychoactive. So I will not be tripping with you as we go through class today, even though, of course, I'm not against that. Probably have a very different type of class. We had activated cannabis smoothies before class. Trish supports the use of iodine. Iodine can be great. I took that a couple of years ago. It was some extremely concentrated iodine solution that literally made crystals jump out of my skin. And I only did it once because I felt so, it's like when you take something that's incredibly salty and then you have to drink a ton of water to rebalance your body. So yeah, he says nascent iodine. I don't know if it was nascent. It was specifically off of one of these anti-Morgellons websites that is supposed to be something that helped a lot of other people. And I was desperate, so I tried it. And it definitely made crystals evacuate from my body. Like I remember just looking at my hand and my arm and the whole entire thing was covered in little tiny sparkling crystals. And I was like holy shit, like what is inside of me? And the stuff is getting out. It got out, but I also felt like that was not a sustainable way of self-detox. I would not do that every day. But the iodine is powerful stuff, definitely. But you know what is good for every day? Okay, so zeolite, both powders and tinctures every day. And we'll go through this really extensively next week. Red light therapy, yes. Yeah, I don't know what that one is. Okay. What are some of the other things that I do almost every day? I don't do chlorine dioxide every day, but you can do that every now and then. I do methylene blue every day, 1 drop mixed with liposomal vitamin C, because that stuff goes right to your brain and also will cross the fatty lipid barriers of your cell membranes. And the methylene blue, again, there's really no contraindications, but you just don't want to have to take a lot of it. You know, you don't have to take 10 drops and make your eyeballs turn blue. But if they did, you'd be fine in a couple of weeks. It would go away. But it's not like colloidal silver, but just take 1 drop and that's enough. Also even just large amounts of vitamin C are really going to help you in this, because vitamin C has to do with cell reconstruction and forming and sustaining scar tissue, so that because you guys don't even want to know, like when this stuff goes through your body, it doesn't go politely around your cells, it punches through. It's like, oh, there's a barrier there, I'm not going to be nice to it, punching through, and then it just kind of burrows through, kind of like the spirochetes of Lyme disease. Yeah, so I do a bunch of different things, a whole protocol every day in terms of keeping this stuff at bay. And that if I keep up with that, then I stay myself, and I'm able to not become over inundated by the proliferation of this stuff. But if I fall down, if I fall down on my various different spiritual, energetic, and detox protocols and hygienes, then yeah, this stuff creates an overgrowth, and then you get kind of pushed down, and then you've got like a 10-pound boulder, like a 20-pound boulder, however hard it is to get out from underneath it. So in every way possible, what you want to do is consistently clear yourself of this stuff, and then be able to keep yourself clear, knowing that it's constantly trying to regrow. But I don't want you to feel like it's a Sisyphusian task, even though it somewhat is. I'm always walking on the treadmill. Cardio helps, with the type of cardio that's most effective, because here I'm just walking at like 1 mile an hour. But if you really get going to the point where you're hot, because the infrared is really something about that, and you generate infrared when you do a lot of cardio. So you can do sauna. Big thumbs up to sauna if you have access to that type of facility, or if you are physically capable, do running or cardio, something that makes you sweat. Because I really noticed that when I did that this stuff became less and less empowered inside of me. And that's a good motivation, even beyond fitness and the runner's high. I'm like, ooh, like I'm frying that crapola stuff out. I'm frying that stuff out of me. So yes, hugely empowering to do so. But we'll do a real delineation of that in terms of how to fight against them next week. Okay, pulling up my notes. This has been like my most disorganized class as a professor, I think, that I've ever done, because I just needed a lot of support and ranting in the beginning. Okay. So also, this class is about DMT and cannabis. You might be like, Aurora, what is the significance? Why are you talking about these two, drugs? Don't you talk about spiritual uplift? And how does this relate to flying rainbow lasagna and to my biochemistry and my architecture and my spiritual attainment? And so, I'll go into that. There's very real reasons for me to talk about these things, although it's part of my original curriculum, but it is still relevant to your journey. So why do I talk about these two chemicals? There are endogenous brain chemicals, and that means that they are naturally occurring in your brain. They are also created and produced in external plants. And that's because if you look at the planet as an external fractal macrocosm of your own body, plants represent neurotransmitters. So a lot of our pharmacopoeia in your present day, medical system comes from compounds that are originally derived from plants. Like the opium poppy makes opioids that then get refined and changed into, different forms of medicines. And same thing with so many other things, like digitalis, the heart medicine, comes from foxglove. So you recognize that there's this connection, but it's actually a very deep spiritual allegory, that the blood of the planet is like the waters. The oceans of the planet are analogous to the blood that is within your body. Same salinity. And your red blood cells are like the fish that are swimming in the ocean. And your branches of the alveoli that are in your lungs are directly analogous to the shape of a tree and the function of a tree in terms of oxygenation and the carbon dioxide oxygen balance of the atmosphere. And then there's humans. Humans are analogous to the neurological functioning of this planet, which is why if you mess with humans and genetically modify them and make humans think a bunch of crazy thoughts, crazy is in air quotes there, a bunch of destabilized caca-poo-poo thoughts, then you will be affecting and afflicting the entire planet. And that is essentially what happened in ancient concurrent Atlantis, and that is what is known as the fall. Giant planetary-wide destabilization that happened from destabilizing human willpower, human consciousness, human viewpoint, and human thought structure. So you're an organ of the planet, but the organ of the planet has been diseased or destabilized. And so in your own little human body, you have these endogenous brain chemicals that are also mirrored in reality in externalized plants that are part of the brain of the planet. And these plants are, using them and ingesting them is actually very pro-survival and very positive. So let me also say this, because this question almost always comes up. Because I'm anti-technology, even though this is a naturally occurring crystal that has this amplifier, that is a technology-based amplifier that is amplifying its signal. But I want you to know I still haven't thrown out my value system. I'm still very much about, you really contain all of the innate, everything you need in your bathing suit, sorry, your birthday suit. You got everything you needed in your birthday suit as you came here. But that we are in very, very difficult situations. That's why I don't want you to be like, no. Aurora says I only need my birthday suit, and that's why I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to wear shoes. I'm not going to do that, and I'm only going to do this because I don't want you to have an extra difficult task of climbing a mountain barefoot when you could actually wear hiking boots, and that's totally acceptable to make your life easier, make your journey actually happen easier. So almost everybody asks this question, like, well, if you're going to be an ascended master and you're going through these levels of self-cultivation and get to levels of psychic excellence, shouldn't you do it 100% naturally without any kind of external accoutrements, no drugs, no plants, no this, no that, not even a crystal, just your birthday suit? And of course, there have been amazing aspirants, mostly in the areas of Asia, but in other areas of our world too, that have lived like with no clothing, possibly a loincloth, but really no clothing, just their birthday suit, and reached amazing levels of spiritual attainment. But that was really in a different historical context. That was pre-nano, before the unmentionables, and before a lot of the technology that is presently being used to really suppress the natural activities of your brain and your body. So the answer is, if you lived in a pristine system, then yes, I would not have to advocate for you to have access to cannabis or to use cannabis, either raw or heated or dried in any way. You would already be able to cultivate and exist and experience these exalted states of connectedness because you live in a pristine environment. So this is really like, right now, you live in an anti-ascension, anti-Christ environment. The sun in the sky is not, you're not even receiving all of the light and nourishing sustenance that you should receive from the sun. Like if you went 2,000 years ago, you'd be like, this sun is amazing. Like, it feels so great. I've got all of this light and information and energy going directly into my epidermis. You'd be like, yep, that's what it's supposed to be like. And then if you time travel back to the future, you'd be like, oh, like this is what it feels like here. Like I have 1%. I have 1% of that actually coming inside of me. That's why I'm in love with my chicken light, because it gives me at least like an ersatz, an imitation level of what we would be receiving from the true sun, that we are not, because of various different levels of pollution. Some of the pollution are atmospheric particulates. Some of the pollution are satellites and satellite systems. Some of the pollution are the particulates inside of your own body. Some of it has to do with frequency blankets, frequency warfare. It's your environment. So if you went back 2,000 years ago, not only would you be like, the sun feels amazing, but if they gave you like just a piece of bread, you would be like, this is the best bread I've ever eaten in my life. It would be full of real life force energy. First of all, it would be non-genetically modified, grown in water that doesn't have glyphosate rain. There's no petrochemicals in your water system either. And that it would be, not chemically manipulated. They do all these different things like bleached, enriched, and bromated, that they do all these different things to adulterate flour before it actually gets to you. And it would be freshly ground and then baked in some kind of a stone oven. Like, that is bread of life. That is the bread of life. Oh, something, my thing just beeped, and Princess Cheeky has awoken. Princess Cheeky got a good walk today. So wait. Cheeky hugs. Cheeky, you need to see everybody. Good job, good job, good job. Yeah, so yeah, we need lightheartedness. We really do. Wait, and I might have to give her a bribe. We'll see. But if you had access to the pure, unadulterated food that was grown in an unadulterated food system, your taste buds would jump out of your tongue. They would be like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever had. Like, we in this time place have really not ever had real food. And that's food that is grown in integrity and with love and with intention. And even where I used to live across town, had my own orange tree in the backyard. And like, I watered that tree every day. I talked to it every day. If you guys eat oranges, you have to really appreciate them because it takes them over a year to ripen and develop. So it's a lot of water. It's a lot of intention. It's a whole year to get an orange off of that tree. But those oranges tasted amazing. And they were, of course, calibrated to me. They were like, the tree was like, here, I'm giving you everything that you need in this orange. So that would be a completely different circumstance. And even the way that animals were raised for, for their meat and for their eggs, all of that was, there was no factory farming, there was no genetic modification and soy-based grain diet and feeding them M&Ms and nonsense and all of those injections that go into them. None of that. We would have none of that. This is very, very big stuff. Oh, hold on. I have to bribe. Oh, hold on 1 minute. So the actual real food, real sunlight, and real food that is filled with light is what nourishes and sustains your light body. And to eat that food and also drink living waters. I'm not sure if it was someone in this class who affirmed that for me, but if you ever have an opportunity, please go to Mount Shasta. It's one of the most magical places in the world. It's right here in California. And the water there is so magical, filled with life force, sustaining, that I agreed with this other person. When you're there in the mountain, you don't even really feel hungry, and you drink that spring water from the mountain and you feel like that's all you need. And it's not even a sense of like deprivation where you're like, oh, I really want a hamburger, but I'll just drink some water and I'll be okay. You really drink that water and you feel sustained and elevated on a deeper level than it makes physical, denser food not necessary for the time that you're there. It's really, really quite extraordinary. And every time I go there, me and my friends fill up jugs, bring the jugs home. And you don't even have to go someplace special. If you go to Mount Shasta, there is a spring that is in Panther Meadows, but you can also just go to the spigot that is in the town square and just fill up your canteens over there. It's totally free. You don't have to pay anybody any money. And then you just take that water home and drink it for the next several weeks. Just amazing, amazing sustenance that comes from that water. If my whole point is, if you were in that world of drinking pristine water, unpolluted food, and living not in a 5G nano wetware infested world, then you would not need to have externalized sources of cannabis to be able to feel these elevated levels of divine connection. You would not have to supplement your endogenous biochemistry. You would generate it all yourself internally. That is very truthful. If you were in a pristine world, but you're not in a pristine world, you're in pretty much the most polluted, most antichrist situation that is possible to experience, meaning antichrist, meaning suppressive of the activities and perceptions of your pineal gland. Everything here is meant to paralyze and diminish your pineal gland. Yes, someone just thought, oh, you mean like fluoride? Exactly like fluoride. Fluoride and everything that contains fluoride, for tons of pharmaceuticals have fluoride sprinkled on top, like Prozac. Prozac has fluoride added to it, and so do a lot of other psychiatric medicines that don't really make you better, but they make you deader so that you don't feel the things that are hurting you. There's actually a lot of pharmaceuticals that have that diminishing effect. Like gabapentin is another one that people use for neurological pain, but it also, you can't learn new things. You can't make new neural connections when you're on gabapentin. It is a deadener. And then ibuprofen is another one. People are like, oh, my back is sore. I'll take this, whatever, Tylenol, ibuprofen. It's like over-the-counter stuff. It's a deadener. And it makes you less emotionally perceptive. It makes you feel everything less. Yes, you feel less. So lots of people take deadeners. But yes, the fluoride that is in pharmaceuticals, that absolutely deadens the pineal gland. And I should talk about the pineal gland. I can draw this all out for you, but it's tiny, so I'm exaggerating, but it is shaped like an eyeball, and it has fluid inside of there. And then it has microcrystals, some of which might only be a couple of molecules together, or might even be monoatomic, like one atom of a mineral that is there. And it's supposed to be in a perfect crystalline formation, creating a mind antenna. And what fluoride and other toxic pollutants do is almost create like a gunk between the crystals that prevents them from vibrating effectively and gums up the system. And when people say detoxify your pineal gland, what it really means is to remove the junk that is from this tiny vibrating cavity inside of your mind and make it so that it can vibrate again. So if you want to know, like, how do you detoxify your pineal gland? You have to stop ingesting fluoride, including stop ingesting fluoridated water. If you're in a fluoridated water system, there's an herb called Tulsi, Tulsi, which is also known as holy basil. That certainly helps. And then raw cannabis also helps to against spike protein and against the fluoride, detoxify your pineal gland. Then after you do this clear out and catharsis, then you need to fill up with the positive crystals that should be in there. And I like this particular stuff that comes from Dancing with Water. That is their highly heated bamboo salt. So the story behind that is that this is in Asia a long time ago. These monks used to take a blend of different types of salt and put it inside of a bamboo hollow and seal the ends and put it in a kiln, like super hot oven for heating ceramics. And the incredible high heat rearranges the molecular structure of the salt and elevates it, makes it more bioavailable. It turns into this stuff that is ormus. People talk about all sorts of things and call it ormus, O-R-M-U-S. But this is an elevated level of these crystals. And you drink a little bit of that every day, and it really does elevate the activity of your pineal gland, because what you're doing is essentially putting good crystals in, clear out the junk and put good crystals in there. So those are some of the things that you can do that are totally supportive of this. But and also, okay, so now we have to go back 5,000 years to ancient China. And the word China actually means the land of hemp. And it actually is considered one of the cradles of human civilization. And their entire evolving and emerging civilization was based upon the use of hemp. And that means to be able to create a steady food supply for large enough populations to have like an urban population, to make small towns and cities and stuff like that, you have to be more than just a hunter-gatherer society. They base their entire society on hemp. Cheeky, we hear you. You're right. I mean, I gave you foods. That means the seed that was used for both protein and oils, and the oils were used for cosmetics, ingestion, hygiene, and industrial purposes, and the fibers that were used to be able to make clothing. And then, of course, the flowering tops that are used to be able to make medicines and extracts. So I have to teach you about the actual cannabis plant, which has been, largely demonized and looked at in a derogatory sense from the satanic power structure of this world, because the world is satanic and antichrist, consciousness reducing, and cannabis is actually consciousness elevating. And you might be like, Aurora, I'm skeptical of that because I know a lot of these potheads and they don't seem that, consciousness elevated. And I will agree, actually, anecdotally, like when I first moved to Northern California, like the Emerald Triangle was not very far from where I lived. And there were lots of potheads and lots of, whatever, people that had all these big, giant illegal cannabis farms. And I thought that they would be super open to flying rainbow lasagna ideas. I thought, like, maybe I found my people. But they were totally zombified. They were totally just like on smoking pot, but not just smoking pot a lot. They also smoked a lot of these extracts, which was just becoming in vogue. And these petroleum-based extracts that I don't think are very healthy for people, but they were not mentally present. So it's very truthful that just like any substance, that this substance can be used for consciousness reduction if it's not used wisely. That was just through people through their hedonism. I remember at this one particular festival or whatever. My friend was inside and I did not have the wristband. And I just was trying to ask someone, can you deliver a message? Go to my friend, tell them that I am here. And I'm like trying to get someone's attention, and they were all zombified. I'm telling you, they were all zombified. I'm like, can you just go in there and say Aurora? They couldn't get it. They couldn't answer basic questions, follow directives or anything like that. That is clearly not what I am advocating for, that level of consciousness reduction through overusage. But I am a huge advocate for the plant in terms of being able to make it a part of your diet, because it's supposed to be a part of your diet. And this is going back to the development through what you call human history of the beginning of civilization. That is, it is considered to be a basic part of your biochemistry to have this in your body, and it helps you to remain healthy, functional, and alive. So it also has a huge backstory in your culture. It goes back further than 5,000 years. It goes back into the ancient Judean culture, out of which came the 5 original books of your Bible that's called the Torah, and then also the New Testament in Christianity. You're like, how does pot circumstance go into Christianity? What? I'm like, yes, actually it does. So the book of Exodus, which I'm going to talk about extensively next week in galactic history as it relates to imposters, alien imposters who are actually deities or small g demigods pretending to be the true God. But the extraterrestrial voice that led the population out of Egypt, that was actually contravening the power structure of Egypt and led them into the desert. The people who would become Jewish people and the Israelites, but they weren't the Jewish people yet because they hadn't received the Torah yet, because receiving of the Torah is what made them the Jewish people that they were. So they weren't quite the Jews yet, but those were the people that were given these specific instructions about how to worship this small g deity god. And part of it involved these 3 magical implements that the voice from the sky gave them to sustain them when they were in the desert. They were considered the 3 things that humans need. So there's manna, that's the food that fell from the sky every day and sustained them. Then there was a flowering staff that gave them water, the flowering staff of Aaron, and that they could get water in the desert, food, water, and that's the final thing you need, medicine. And this was an ampule of the holy anointing oil. And the recipe for the anointing oil is also given to them. And it basically involves a large amount of olive oil and a large amount of the flowering tops of the canna bosom plant. So if you look into the King James Bible, it will tell you it is the cane, the sweet flag. It's translated wrongly as sweet flag, which is also interesting. It has LSD precursors, LSD amines, but it's not LSD itself. But that's not what these people were ingesting. But the Amish and some of the Shakers, this is crazy. I know it's not crazy. It's wild. It's off the wall, I should say. This is off the wall. I know. So this is like from the late 1700s, early 1800s, a religious mystical movement in United States that was not very well known. The Shakers were called Shakers because they shook religiously in ecstasies during their meetings. They didn't have worship, they had meetings, because they took this Acorus calamus, these reeds, and they would cut them and they would put them on the ground of their meeting space, and the fumes would be like rising up, and they would do these shaking episodes. It's precursor to LSD. All right, that's all I can say. So they were in forms of molecularly involved ecstatic worship, even though they didn't necessarily know it. But the use of psychoactive cannabis for ecstatic worship is ancient, and it even goes back to the Assyrians, Scythians. They used to create these type of sweat lodges where they would hotbox themselves, create like hot rocks on the bottom, and then take big giant branches of the cannabis plant and throw it in there, and the whole entire place is covered in animal skins, so it releases a lot of the smoke and the herbal smell, and they would be in there and kind of just get marinated in that whole smell and have elevated otherworldly experiences. So what you guys need to know about this plant is that the brain chemicals are endogenous. It mimics chemicals that are already inside of your own body, but that when you ingest the plant, If it is the fresh plant, like if you just ate it like a salad, it would not have a psychedelic experience on you. Because of the shape of the molecule, before it is heated or dried, when it's raw, it does not go into your brain. So this is how come I can drink. I have a cube in here. So I grow it myself legally here in California. And I grow my high CBD variety, and then I juice it and I save my valuable cubes, and I have a cube a day. So that's why this is mixed up with like some orange juice and some of the green cannabis cube is in there. But because it is raw, I will be drinking this and it will not cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's going into my intestines and all of my other body systems, and it has a wonderful anti-cancer, anti-seizure, anti-inflammatory uplift and nourishment for your body. And it also helps to create cell-to-cell signaling and a different level of neurological bidirectional balance. But it will not make you like trip out, listen to Jimi Hendrix. When I talk about the bidirectional balance, I talked about this a couple of lessons ago. Human objective materialist science, looking at and studying the neurology post-World War II of your population as it is in a state of malnutrition. Almost everyone after World War II has malnutrition, even though you have the presence and in consumption of calories, you do not have the array of nutrients that you actually require. And so part of this was a malevolent plan by chemical companies to, use chemical fertilizers and things like that degrade the soil and produce an inferior product with much less actual life force in it. That's why I said if you tasted real bread from 2,000 years ago, you'd be like, it's the best. It would be like the most amazing. It would be like manna from heaven for you. You'd be amazed at how sustaining it is, because the soil that your bread is grown out of in this time place is depleted. I think the official word for that is kaput. There's no actual nutrients in the soil. That was from the 1930s, from the Dust Bowl. All the topsoil blew away. Soil went bye-bye. And then they're like, we have to put a bunch of chemicals down so that we can actually grow our crops. And so what you eat are the end result of foods that have been grown largely through these adulterations of chemicals that don't contain actual nutrients and do not contain the precursors to the cannabinoids in your body. Precursors to cannabinoids in your body begin in breast milk. So look, we've got endocannabinoid system in your body, precursors in your historical record back to ancient Assyria, the development of culture in China, and then also the foundations of your Judeo-Christian religion, which is all pervasive at this point, in the Middle East. And then in your own body, when you were first born, and if you were lucky enough to have your mother breastfeed you, there were cannabinoids in her breast milk. That is normal and healthy and positive and is required. When you think about all of these things, like why did these things develop in terms of successfully giving birth to nourishing infants for millennia? Like you've been having babies and keeping babies alive for a very long time. It's how you had the future generations. Your body is doing something right. And the biochemistry of breast milk is a perfect example of that, how the breast milk is really very miraculous in how it responds to the baby's nutritional needs and immune system needs. And the very first thing that the baby needs is a microbiome, because it doesn't have any microbes in its tummy and can't actually digest foods that you put in there. And the cannabinoids are also a part of the very first milk that comes forward for the infant to get inoculated in its digestive tract. It makes them hungry, because little babies, this is analogous to me being a light being, and I'm a light eater, and I come here and I'm like, I'm supposed to, like, food goes in here? What? And then it goes in here, then you know what happens. It comes out the other end. Much like a little baby needs to learn that, like, food goes in here. This is this weird thing. I don't even know what this is about. So babies don't necessarily feel hungry, but the cannabinoids that are in breast milk go into their digestive tract and they stimulate actual hunger. They stimulate the actual digestive response, and they make it so that the body absorbs nutrients. So you are supposed to have cannabinoids in your diet as a normal part of the foods in your food supply. It's been artificially eradicated from your food supply since World War II. It is part of a negative anti-human, anti-Christ, anti-health agenda. Sorry, there's a loud noise outside. I'm just letting it go by. The food supply is supposed to contain the origins of hemp. It's okay. Where does the stuff come from in the food supply? It comes from hemp. Hemp, like it has been grown in China, has been the basis of many civilizations, including United States. And it is something that was grown mostly for its stalk and fibers. And that was used for the sails, cloth, and rigging of the tall ships. So it was a huge aspect of industry and the Navy and warfare. But when the farmers would grow it, big tall plants, but they only needed the stem, they would throw the leaves in a big giant pile and it would ferment. It is called silage. And the fermentation would make the plant material more bioavailable to both cows and pigs and chickens, all of whom would receive this as part of their food supply. And the cannabinoids in the fermented silage would go into the meat of the cow. And that would be part of what you eat in your hamburger, would go into the meat of the pig, would go into both the meat and the eggs of the chicken. And yes, would also be part of the milk that comes out of dairy cows that eat this stuff. So in order to have a healthy functioning endocannabinoid system in your own body, you have to have cannabinoids that come from somewhere. They're supposed to be in the food supply. No one was getting high off of their milk or their eggs. Do you understand? They were not feeling what the zombified people in Northern California were feeling. They were incapacitated. None of this was about incapacitation. All of this was about biochemistry regulation, keeping the body in optimum states of health, because each one of your cells contains both CB1 and CB2 receptors. So the cell of your body is covered in a membrane that is fatty, and it has all these little doorways or all these little like locks that have keys that go in the locks. And the apertures are these receptors, and they don't just exist in the neurology of your brain or like the long axons of neurological vessels going through your body. Those cannabis receptors exist in every single cell of your body. Every single cell of you is literally wired or as a basic substrate created with the capacity to receive cannabis. That is totally not by accident. And that when you eat raw cannabis, it goes to all of these cell receptors and goes inside of them and creates various different health and life-affirming effects, including destroying cancer. If this is a cancerous cell and the various different receptors receive access to the cannabis molecule, the cell says, oh, my mistake, I'm getting cancerous. Oh, well, time for me to go into a non-being state, going to dismantle myself and go bye-bye. Literally, that is what it does. But if it is a healthy cell, then the cell membrane is protected by the presence of these receptors that are filled with the molecule. That's it. It helps protect healthy cells and helps for diseased cells to get the signal that they are diseased and that they need to go away. Cancer used to be a very, very rare disease. Used to be something that was rare and unusual and, whatever, like an exotic victim. Hardly anyone ever got it. It was a very, very sad thing. Then post-World War II, more people started getting it. They took cannabis out of the food supply, more people started getting cancer. Then once they started adding a bunch of chemicals and other stuff into your food, hygiene products and other things in your environment, and then adding frequency on top of that, then it's like, yeah, now you've got lots of cancer everywhere. I know, very, very facetious. It's horrible. It's not how it's supposed to be at all. First of all, it's totally erroneous and rearrange your expectation. It's not normal to get cancer. It's not normal. Something very, very wrong is going on if a large proportion of the population in this world develops cancer, 1 in 3 or 2 in 3, or however, what crazy statistic it is at this point. And that is 100% because humans need to eat cannabis You don't need to eat it like eating a magical brownie to get high, even though that's wonderful. You need to eat dietary cannabis every day. And when I lived in New York State during Prohibition era, you were not allowed to have any amounts of cannabis inside of your body. And I used to tell everyone, grow it in your garden and juice it like a vegetable. People are like, Aurora, you're crazy. And then I moved to California where I could grow it in my garden and juice it like a vegetable. And that's what I've been doing for 10 years. So I'm a huge advocate for both people to be able to grow it themselves. That means you have to become a political activist at this point, because you're still facing the foot dragging and resistance of the federal government, which is Antichrist, to allowing you to have access to this health affirming, life giving, natural food chemical, or whatever, phytonutrient that keeps your whole body healthy and prevents you from getting cancer. I take it so regularly, not really in terms of cancer, but because I have dealt with adult epilepsy after brain injury. And this was from the brain injury that, killed the previous occupants while I'm a walk-in here. So I deal with a lot of neurological after effects of that. And cannabis, specifically CBD, but also the raw juice, is anti-inflammatory and anti-seizure. And by drinking that juice every day, I've been able to heal my brain, regulate my neurology, do things like improve my memory, because when you have seizures, your memory gets really bad. Improve my piano playing and my musical skills, create new neural pathways and learn new things and retain what I have learned, all because I'm able to access CBD and raw cannabis. So I literally had to move across the country to be able to do that. And that was 10 years ago. Now you have pretty much half the country has changed its laws state to state. So if you're from another country other than United States, the way it works around in here is each state itself has its own laws. Like the laws for Kansas are different than the laws for California, but then there are some laws that are federal, that are for everyone in the whole entire country. So what the stupid federal government has done is to say, okay, every state can decide whether it wants to have legalized cannabis or not, but we're still going to make it all illegal for all of you, which is totally crazy. So now you have more than 50% of the country writing its laws of its own locality and saying that they want to have legal cannabis and here are the rules and how you do it. But the government still has not given the total go ahead. And so it leads to some of these legal conflicts where if you have a federal marshal in California, they can arrest you for possession of even small amounts of cannabis. And that in California, if you have never visited here, literally everybody smokes cannabis. It is very, very socially normal. And the idea of people being persecuted, like being brought to court because you have whatever, a joint or something like that, is unimaginable. It would be like saying, like, you're going to go to jail for jaywalking or something like that. You're like what? Like that doesn't happen. But you could have that if you have a federal marshal that pulls you over or whatever, searches your pockets and is like, what's this? So very, very different than someplace that's famously prohibition, like Texas or someplace like that, where it's like, yeah, the police are very harsh there and you're not allowed to have anything in your possession. Still facing levels of social suppression and social stigmatization, which is saying that this is not a socially acceptable activity, even though at this point it is a very socially acceptable activity and very normal in most areas of our culture. Again, not certain areas of the United States, but most of it totally normal. But there is a big difference between smoking it and eating it. And they're both good things to do, but they are both different things to do. So I'm really a big advocate for dietary cannabis and mostly raw, because when you eat it raw, it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier and you are able to reach greater levels of saturation in the units, like how many units in your blood, than you would otherwise. You'd be incapacitated if it was an activated brownie that had been heated or dried. Then if you ate that amount, you would like either be sitting on the couch or falling asleep. You would not be active. But if you drink it raw, then you're me. They're like, I'm gonna walk 10 miles on my treadmill and then make a bunch of artwork and make some music. So yeah, you are still clear-headed and highly active because it doesn't go into your brain. So it doesn't change your thought processes. If you have brain cancer, you want it to go into your brain. But other than that, it's perfectly acceptable to just have the raw version. And I share all this. I know this is a lot of specified information for you because like you can give the raw juice to a little tiny child. They're not going to get high. Like you could give it to a 3-year-old and that would be totally good parenting. And you could give it to your grandpa who's 95 and you could probably feel great. You'd definitely feel better than if you give him like an ibuprofen or whatever, trying to make him feel better that way. And it doesn't go against any pharmaceuticals. Like if people are already taking insulin or some other, really necessary daily pharmaceutical to keep them alive, heart medicine, they can still take all of those things and this isn't going to have a negative influence. So really every single reason to grow it and juice it, and no reason not to, other than that you have an antichrist government that does not want you as a population to be empowered, divinely connected, and mostly in charge of your own health. If you elected me queen of your planet, I would, this is part of my platform, changing your laws and everything like that, because this is also big stuff in healthcare, that actually so many of the maladies that you presently face and that most people go to the doctor for chronic complaints, skin problems, digestive problems, human female reproductive problems, like a lot of stuff with like having irregular or painful periods, all of those things get fixed up with cannabis juice. All of these things, migraines. I mean, people go to the doctor quite regularly and have really expensive treatments for migraines, which can be really debilitating when all you have to do is grow a plant in your garden and put it through your juicer. What's my recipe? Okay, so look, you got to grow your plants without chemicals. That's the first thing. So the way that I grow my plants is using only compost tea as like a foliar spray for the healthy microbes to prevent pests, or possibly something like a diluted neem oil or dish soap, only something that is food safe. So you never spray it with chemicals. And then I put it through a slow masticating juicer, because some juicers create a very fast friction, or if you put it in like a Ninja bullet, that is more of a food processor type of thing, you have to be really careful because those will heat up your product, and the cannabis is activated in the presence of heat. So you will unwittingly be making an activated smoothie for yourself, which I have many, not my own, but many stories that people have told me about how they unwittingly activated their stuff and then whatever, had either a very colorful day at work or wherever they were trying to go that was not intended. So you have to be careful with yourself on that. And also don't mix it with mangoes unless you want to get high, because the cannabis and the mango create an activation together that will affect your brain. So you do it through a slow masticating juicer. I do frozen apples because that way it keeps everything cold. And you alternate like a slice of apple, a slice of lemon, a little bit of cannabis, and you keep alternating and you send it through, and then you stop when your thing gets, you have to clean it out, run it with cold water, and then do the next batch and put it into ice cube trays. That's it. And then stick it in the freezer and then save it. And that you do that also during the summertime, so that at this time of year, when it is wintertime, that you've got all of your beautiful green, valuable, I call it green gold, saved up in the freezer, waiting for you. And I'm telling you, not only has this helped me to be able to control seizures and remain neurologically healthy without the pharmaceuticals. You guys don't even know that much about my medical odyssey, but when I lived in 2006, on the East Coast, and I went through your medical system to deal with the seizures, the anti-epilepsy medicines are like the worst. They have the worst side effects, and they're totally zombified and not functional. And I was definitely not like vibrant as an artist and was very diminished. And I was like, this is not a way to live. And that's why I found alternatives. So there are so many different pharmaceuticals that this can replace. And in my joking presidential campaign for Queen of the World, yes, elect me, and I will make sure that this becomes our healthcare platform. Because the truth is, you spend a lot of money going to the doctor because like, ow, like I've got a migraine or my period hurts. I was like, well, you know what you need to do? Here, Dr. Aurora prescribes, drink some cannabis juice and then call me in the morning. That literally, you would save so much money on your healthcare costs if people could grow their own garden and treat their maladies with raw cannabis. And also prevent maladies. If you are drinking raw cannabis every day, your chances of developing cancer, especially intestinal colorectal cancer, canceled, go way down. You're not going to get cancer of the colon if you're constantly bathing the lining of your intestines with this cannabis juice. And you can also make cannabis truffles or smoothies. I do that too. So I juice the leaves and the flowers that are traditionally what people smoke. So if you dry them, then they become psychoactive and it will give you a mental effect, which again, I have no problem with that at all. I'm totally not judgmental, but we will get into ayahuasca and my feelings on all of these things. But you can take those buds that are flowers, they call them buds. You can put them in a mason jar and just put a lid on it and just freeze it. And I do that too in the summertime. And then I have them for the winter time and I make awesome smoothies. And again, you want to make sure not to heat your smoothie by blending it too much. So you make all the smoothie stuff and then at the last minute you put in the cannabis, all right? But here's my recipe. You can use coconut milk or you can use almond milk and a little bit of hemp seed or something that's like a nut butter or something like that. So you have to have something that's a fatty emollient. And then you can put in like some healthy cacao powder or nibs or healthy chocolate chips, like some form of chocolate, because chocolate and cannabis, this theobromine in chocolate actually really helps as an agonist of the positive mood elevating effects of cannabis. And then some good kind of frozen fruit. Frozen blueberries are great. Caution on the frozen mango, because you don't want to dose yourself up. Or strawberries, something good, frozen bananas, and blend it all up and then throw in the buds and blend it all up. And that's food of the gods. And I'm telling you, if you drink that every day, it's very mood uplifting. And people don't even, so you will not feel high, but you will feel positive, peaceful feelings. That is very, very different than feeling like stoned, high, drunk, out of control. People don't recognize. This goes back to this question of becoming an ascended master and shouldn't you do it on the natch without having to take anything? Our world is filled with irritants right now. Bluetooth frequencies, millimeter wave, all that stuff is a brain irritant. And people often think like they've got depression and anxiety. And sometimes it's because of their lives or their relationships or their work. Sometimes they think it's just their biochemistry. It is a brain inflammation in response to irritants. So sometimes you are depressed because of your life or your husband or whatever is going on in your life, or anxious about your family. But sometimes those biochemical responses are directly related to the inflammatory response of your brain in the presence of different pollutions. And the cannabis, dietary cannabis specifically, reduces inflammation. So it reduces inflammation in your brain. So when your brain is not constantly inflamed, you're like, I just feel good. I just feel happy, calm, peaceful, good, relaxed, ready to do what I need to do in the day. And there's a gut-brain connection because a lot of people right now, I'm telling you, post-World War II, you've got chronic malnutrition. And some of it is because you don't have nutrients in your food supply. And some of it is because human lining of the intestines is so inflamed that the epithelial cells literally cannot do their job and absorb nutrients. Like imagine you're like, like I'm too angry to do anything, get away from me. That is what the epithelial cells lining of your stomach feels like in response to Bluetooth, crapola, this stuff, and various different forms of parasites that are in people's intestines. And so the dietary cannabis works on the lining of the intestine, reestablishes the gut barrier. So you're not having things leaky gut syndrome, which is a huge problem with glyphosate, and the proper creation and generation of neurotransmitters, which happens largely in your gut-brain connection. Your intestines produce serotonin, natural uplift chemical. And when your intestines are all inflamed, they're like, I don't don't feel like natural, uplifted. Oh, everybody get away from me. Your brain feels inflamed and your tummy feels inflamed. And many, many people have this problem. And not everybody even can talk about it because sometimes it involves like bathroom problems that people don't want to, they're embarrassed about. But cannabis helps your digestion. It helps your capacity to absorb food. It helps your capacity to eliminate, poop out stuff in a healthy way, which is essential for life. And so many people have Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and other forms of malfunctioning of their excretory system. And raw cannabis, dietary cannabis, absolutely helps all of that stuff. And so when you start to add all of that up, yes, you would have a huge savings. It's a no-brainer. It's very, very sensible to say that a good way to run not only your country, but your entire world would be to say, like instead of paying whatever, $1,500 a month on these inflated medical insurance costs, because that's what it can be in the United States and more sometimes, depending upon what your issues are. Instead of paying these exorbitant insurance fees to be able to then go to a pharmacist and receive a bottle with extracts of pills that you take, if for $300, the whole entire year, you can grow, so that's $300 not per month, but per year, you can grow a garden that can make all of the juice that you need, store your juice in your freezer, take 1 cube a day, stay away from the pharmacist, and keep your body healthy and prevent cancer and live a really good life. And it's like, that actually makes sense. But if you look at, well, you know something, profits of the pharmaceutical industry would go down. Pharmaceutical industry is like, we don't like this idea, keep it illegal, right? And also all of the buddy stuff between the medical insurance industry and hospital billing. If you guys are in another country other than the United States, you don't have to know about this, but things are very unfair in this country of the way that medical insurance happens, because you guys might have more of a supportive social system and access to medical care, but it's not that way in the United States. It's hugely expensive. Not everybody has access to it, and the care that you get is largely like palliative and diminishing, it's largely driven by the profit model of the pharmaceutical companies who just want to sell pills. That the whole entire purpose is for people to be addicted to pills their whole entire life, which they would have been very happy for me as an epilepsy patient. That's what the doctors pretty much say. They're like, look, here's your medicine. You're gonna take that for the rest of your life. And you kind of have to be like, what? Like, no. And that's why. So I was very innocent as a walk-in, and I didn't know about doctors, hospitals, medicines, and the medical model and the motivations of this place. I had to learn about that. And I learned a lot from talking to other patients. So I always encourage people to reach out, talk to other patients, find out what's working for them, and kind of like get smart about being in charge of your medical care. Because you cannot simply hope that doctors will take good care of you, because you won't receive good care. You have to advocate for yourself, even if you don't feel that you can do it, because you might be feeling very ill and you might not have good cognitive abilities while you're ill, but you got to advocate for yourself. So you got to find some way to articulate, have a voice, say the things you want and you don't want. You can't just be passive and allow them to tell you what you're going to take. Because if you do that, they will just give you the worst drugs. And the best drugs for them are ones that are super expensive for you to have to afford, and then probably give you a bunch of side effects. That was me in my life, that I had several prescriptions, one of which, I remember this, cost $888 a month. This is so much money for one bottle of pills, but it was life-saving and it was necessary. But so this was me. I had to learn all about this by being here alongside all of you, and learn how unfair, inappropriate, and anti-life that really is, and then find solutions. So this is me today. It's 10 years later, and I'm a success story, and I'm sharing with you my solutions. Like, cheers. Here, guys, this is my solutions here. Because I will also tell you that like doctors that I was in touch with, anti-epilepsy doctors, these specialists, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna move to, because I had been on this medicine for like 6 years. And I'm like, I'm gonna relocate to California. I'm gonna drink raw cannabis juice. I'm gonna get off this medicine. And they were kind of like, you don't have to do that. They did not think that that was a valid path towards health. So it's been 10 years. And so I can definitely tell you guys, it is a valid path towards health, that I've been able to be 100% off of the different pharmaceuticals and tranquilizers that they would traditionally prescribe. And I did not only CBD dominant, because there's both CBD and THC. So in the plant itself, there's various different phytonutrients and chemicals. THC is the most familiar, and it is what is psychoactive, what gives you that strange brain feeling and high. But there's all these other symphonic musicians that are playing too. That's CBD, CBG, CBN, and the terpenes. And the terpenes are aromatic chemicals that are exactly the same as like when you open up an orange and the citrus peel kind of squirts that oil and it smells like that beautiful citrus smell. That same oil is in some cannabis plants. That's a terpene. And the smell of skunk, the same smell that comes out of a skunk's rear end, is the chemical that is in some cannabis plants. That's why you can't tell. You're like, do I smell roadkill or do I smell a joint? Like, I can't actually tell the difference. It's the same chemical. And terpenes are agonists. So I have told you about the cell membrane and how it contains these little receptors where it's like a key going in a lock. An agonist is like the WD-40 that lubricates that area so that the chemical can go into the lock more effectively. So it exacerbates the tendency. It makes the medicine more effective. So if you are looking to get high, it makes your high higher. And that's why some people are like, this is some really stinky, skunky stuff. It's going to get you really high, which is fine if that is what you want. But as a patient using this for epilepsy control, seizure control, I look for a certain terpene profile that works for my brain to calm everything down so that I don't have seizures. So what I have done over the past 10 years is to develop my own particular, unique, personalized strain. And this is something that you guys can do for yourselves too. It is a privilege that is limited to people who can grow it legally. Don't do anything illegal, guys. Be good dogs. Get your bowls of kibble. No, really, don't do anything illegal. If you have to relocate, there's lots of states where you can go to now. And most states you can grow like 6 to 8 plants. You don't even have to get a particular license. California is always changing. If you guys need to know a little something about California, their regulations crazy. It means you need a license for everything, like my chinchilla license and my this license and my that license. So yeah, you need a license to be able to grow your herb if you want to grow more than 6 plants. And it usually costs like $100 or $150, but it's just cover your ass. So that way you are protected legally. But if you get one of these pieces of paper that you pay for, then you can grow as many plants as you need to. So grow your plants legally. Research the statutes of your community. Follow the laws of your community, please. And then also do good growing practices in what you grow. Grow organically. That means that you must choose organic soil. Why does this matter? Organic is not merely a status symbol for like yoga pants, Whole Foods people. Cannabis is a phytoremediator, meaning that it takes chemicals and pollutants and radiation out of the soil. And that's positive if you just want to clean up the soil, grow a bunch of hemp, and then throw the hemp away. Don't eat it. But if you grow a bunch of hemp or cannabis in soil that is contaminated, all of the contaminants go into the plant. And it's the same with sunflowers too. So if you grow this plant for your food and your medicine, your soil must be clean. So you have to buy organic soil and then only add organic fertilizers to it. And so I've been doing that. All of my fertilizers and composts and everything like that are these natural forms of compost tea. Trish, I think you will love this because you were talking about, yeah, urine. As she says, is urine part of your birthday suit, like part of your naturally occurring accoutrements that you need? The answer is yes. And I hope it is not off-putting, but that is one way to personalize your plants that you're growing. Even if you're growing tomato plants, if you use your urine and put that in a diluted form into your watering can, what happens is the plants respond to your biochemistry. And they're like, huh, you're a little low on this. Don't worry, kid. I'll grow it for you. I'll make it for you. And then you can eat it and get it as a supplement. So what I've done over 10 years is I put mostly my saliva in the watering can because it's just very easy when you're out there filling up, getting ready to water the plants. I tell everyone this, you spit in the bucket and it gives your biochemistry to the plant, and the plant has options in its phenotype expression of its genetic potential. It can either grow larger levels of THC or greater levels of CBD or combinations of both, depending upon its environmental stressors and your requirements. So I ask the plants to grow what my brain chemistry needs, and the plants do so. And as my brain chemistry shifts each year, the plants shift each year. So it is personalized medicine because every year I cross the males and the females. This is how you make seeds. You smoke the females, you eat the males. The males contain pollen that you don't want to fertilize your females unless you want to make seeds, and you wait until it saves some of that pollen. Just eat your males. Okay, wait, here's the basics of it, how you do it, guys. All right. As you're growing your plants, at first, you will not know whether they are males or females. At a certain point, they will show their sex characteristics. Usually the males are taller and they will develop faster and they will emit their pollen. You don't want them to pollinate everything, so you save some of that pollen in a little jar. Juice your males, all right? Sorry, boys, but it's all that you're good for. Save your females. Then allow your females to grow several months more. Bring them to a level of maturity where you can harvest both their leaves and their flowers. Juice and freeze your leaves. Freeze most of your flowers. Save some of your flowers to be used for like dried medicine or extracts or something like that. Pollinate some of your flowers with the pollen that you have saved, so you make seeds for the next generation. And when you do that, your strain will constantly evolve. So over the 10 years that I've been here taking care of my brain in California, my strain has evolved. And I now have my strain that is Aurora, but it's different every year as it's what I need. So, I had jars of my dried material from several years ago. And when I ingested it recently, I was like, something that doesn't smell, taste, or feel at all like what I need right now. That it was old, it was out of date. Not that it had lost its value, because you can save it in these violet infinity jars. So if you have long-term herb storage, get these glass jars. They're called Myron, M-I-R-O-N, and they're a special form of violet glass that is excellent. And they are expensive because it might be $40 for a jar. But as long as you don't break them, they'll last forever. And you could also store any kind of plant material in there. So you could store dried basil, or carrots, or strawberries, or whatever it is. And there's really something amazing about the deep violet color that preserves the food that is inside of there. And you can also do that if you make tinctures or creams. They make these little jars that are made out of the violet glass that will preserve your tinctures and creams for years, because mostly it is sunlight that degrades these chemical components and makes them no longer active. So the stuff that I had was still potent, but I smoked it and I was like, this doesn't really feel like what my body needs at all, because you know what? I had evolved, so it was no longer relevant. So all of that being said, you can develop this beautiful symbiotic mutualist relationship with the plant. As a brief aside, good book by Michael Pollan, Pollan, called The Botany of Desire, where he talks about 4 different types of plants who have been in a mutualist or symbiotic relationship with humanity over the ages. Potatoes keep you alive, right? Roses for their beauty, tulips, which were used as a type of commodity, and then cannabis. And he talks very, very eloquently as a scientist about how cannabis has formed a partnership with humanity. It's like, look, I'm going to help you stay alive. If you grow me, I'll help you stay alive. And even if you're like going to get arrested for growing me, people will be like, grow it in the closet. And then some people have these elaborate closets with all of these lights and fans, and they treat it like royalty. Like, so Dr. Pollan was saying, like, the reason for this is, like, the plant is very intelligent. It's like, not only are you going to grow me, you're going to grow me even under threat of arrest. And you're going to grow me in optimum environments. So that's a very positive thing, that humans have formed this relationship with the plant that is so valuable to your biochemistry. People are willing to risk imprisonment to produce it for themselves and to create the ultimate indoor garden experience to be able to do so. please, everybody, do your stuff legally. Be good citizens. And also, I'd really say this, advocate for restructuring laws in your area, because if you live in one of the prohibition zones in whatever country you are, it's really essential to advocate, because it's not just about you being able to recreationally enjoy what you want to smoke at the end of your day. It really is about transforming your whole entire healthcare industry, because this is, it can go against skin cancer. People do these radical things where they put a type of burning cream across their whole entire face because they're dealing with skin cancer. You can do that with a cannabis extract that will not chemically burn your face. So because they do this topical chemotherapy for people that are dealing with skin cancer, you don't have to do that. You can actually do concentrated cannabis extracts. So, and if you do concentrated cannabis extracts, try to do CO2, that is carbon dioxide. It does not leave any chemical residues, as opposed to petroleum-based extracts, which might involve butane or other petroleum products that leave behind parts per million. It's ppm. So just be aware of this. This is like, welcome to Aurora's Cannabis College. If you go to a state where there is a dispensary, they have all of these different things. Some of them look like little jars full of earwax, and that stuff, some of it is made out of CO2 extract. That's fine. Some of that stuff is made out of butane extract, and you really don't want that to go into your body. And same thing with some of the little cartridges that go onto the e-cigarette batteries. You buy these little carts, and they're full of brown liquid. And this is, it's totally not like smoking the herb. It's very, very different. And I don't really like those liquids at all, because you don't know what goes into them. Now, and so there can be parts per million. So I kind of stay away from the carts and stuff like that. But here's the other thing, genetic modification. This is really an issue. People used to ask me this question a lot as I presented this class over 10 years, but now it's really an issue. As legalization of cannabis has grown much more widely accepted, the federal government is like, fine, this is me, like, as a condescending royalty, let them have their weed, you know, but pee and poop all over it. Make sure that it's genetically modified. They've been genetically modifying the weed, and they do that in a lot of places where it's grown on industrial commercial scales. Like, you know, a lot of it's grown in Colorado because the land there is pretty cheap, and, you know, it's big, like it's a spacious thing to have to do. Oh, I don't want to lose my train of thought. Delta 8 and Delta 9. So first they genetically modify these strains so that they have weird characteristics that's different than selective breeding. Selective breeding is what I've been doing to create my Aurora strain, but this is something that is different, like, you know, crossing tomato genes with the fish gene or something like that for longer lasting tomatoes. So there's genetic modification for the process of consciousness reduction. They're not making herb that is going to make you more intelligent or more divinely connected or more active. They make herb now that is a suppression. I call it synapse glue. So your synapse is the gap between your neurons where chemical signaling happens. The bidirectional signals of a healthy endocannabinoid system means that when you have pain signals that are coming in this direction, the cannabis can fill up the synapse and say, hey, whoa, on those pain signals. We know your elbow is hurting. We don't need to hear about it. And that's how people deal with chronic pain. They take cannabis and it shuts down the constant pain signals so they can have a good life. And this is how I have a good life. It's not chronic pain. It's too many signals in my brain. So the cannabis says, whoa, too many signals. You guys quiet down. You guys continue to play music. And that is gives me a good life. All right. But when I talk about synapse glue, there's this stuff that is genetically modified, and then there's specific extract chemicals that they do in the stratification of extracts. I don't have a better word for it. There's different fluids that come out, and one of them is this Delta 8 or Delta 9 form of precursor of THC, but they modify it and they do weird stuff to it that when I have ingested it, when I say glue, it fills the receptors, but it does not give you an elevated or an exalted spiritual state. In exactly the same way that there are useful substances that help people to get off of heroin that fill the opioid receptors but don't get you high. So when people want to get off of heroin, they take that other one that is methadone, that prevents them from being ill, but does not give them a psychoactive high. And I'm telling you, this synapse glue, it will make you feel weird and make you feel out of balance, but it does not give you true geometry. It does not give you that true awakening of your pineal gland. Now we're finally there, all right? So now we're going to talk about the pineal gland. So cannabis directly affects your pineal gland. It directly affects the health and functionality of your pineal gland. You want to get rid of your fluoride. You want to fill your cannabis with Ormus positive chemicals, and then you want to ingest positive levels of pristine activated cannabis. That will give you inner visions that are very healthy and accurate. But the Delta 8, Delta 9 stuff, I don't think it gives you healthy and accurate visions. I think it just makes you feel kind of like sleepy, tired, and stupid. And that is how the government wants you to feel. You got it? Right. So I would say avoid the Delta 8, Delta 9 products. We'll return to this topic, but I have to segue into your pineal gland and DMT, because that's the other endogenous brain chemical that we're talking about today, because both of these things have a direct relationship to your pineal gland, your imagination, the seat of consciousness in your mind, and your ability to manifest reality. So cannabis is not only used for people to like think fantasy thoughts or lighthearted daydreams and things like that. And it can help you to write song lyrics, and it can help you to be a better musician, but it also can help you to envision and imagine your future and make stuff. It can be an empowerment tool. When you use cannabis in the right way, you can supercharge your pineal gland and use it as the projector of reality to imagine into being and to manifest all sorts of wonderful things, places, people, and reality structure events, which again, government does not want you to be able to do those things. That is a little bit too much empowerment for you. So now we need to talk about the pineal gland emissions of 3 endogenous, they are hormone-like structures, but they're not hormones. So one of them is melanin. Melanin is the chemical that makes our skin tan in the presence of the sun. It also is the chemical that gives us brown eyes, brown hair, and is protected and an antioxidant in a lot of our body tissues. So it is not emitted by your pineal gland. Your pineal gland gives the signal to melanocytes that are in the subcutaneous layers, the lower layers of your skin, to create these little particles of the brown pigment that is melanin. And then again, it's a direct response of your light body to light. Your pineal gland is like the orchestrator of your light body. When you are in the presence of light and you need to have protection from overexposure, your pineal gland talks to your melanocytes and says, make some melanin, get tan, and get protected from overexposure of the sun. The second chemical that your pineal gland actually produces and emits into your bloodstream is called melatonin. So the first one is really more of a pigment. Melanin is not a hormone, it's really more of a pigment, but it does have different antioxidant qualities in your body. Melatonin is also lumped in as a hormone, but it's not a hormone. People have been afraid, including me, to supplement their melatonin because he thought that, like, if you take artificial estrogen or testosterone, your body will stop producing those hormones because it'll say, oh, I didn't have to make this. I got plenty of this. It's artificially pumped into my body at this point, right? So people are afraid if you take artificial melatonin that your body will stop making it naturally. That is not truthful. Your body will continue to produce melatonin naturally in ideal circumstances, no matter what. Here's the problem. This whole entire world is now anti-melatonin circumstances. Not only is it not ideal circumstances, it is anti-circumstances. Every single bit of LED light and blue light in your environment is diminishing and destroying your natural melatonin production. Why is this important? Because there's also the sun simulator in the sky where you have this big, giant, fake, bright thing that is not the real sun that is emitting light that has a quality that is similarly blue light that gives a signal to your pineal gland, do not produce melatonin. So a quick, simple thing that you can do to protect yourself from blue light. If you have an iPhone, you go to settings, display and brightness, and then manually enable night shift and put the night shift all the way to yellow. There will be a slider, like less yellow, more yellow. Make it all the way to yellow and do that every day. This is the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning and I have to check my emails and everything because I turn it on and I'm like, oh, this thing is frying my eyes. Turn on the change, the display, put it on yellow, and it will help you a lot. So the first thing is to control your exposure of the things that you're able to control on your phones and your tablet and your computer. Do them all night shift or yellow shift. Because so many different directions that I want to go here. So one aspect of this is pineal gland and melatonin production. Another aspect of this is your retinas, which you must begin to envision as externalized brain tissue. Your eyes are actually an externalized part or extension of your brain, and your retinas are totally like the same tissue and matter as your brain. And when you're staring at your phone or your tablet or your computer screen all day long, your retinas are getting fried with blue light. And the blue light is a particular color, a particular signal frequency that we are not supposed to be exposed to very much in the natural world. So we would be exposed to blue light during the middle of the day in a natural world after having woken up and being bathed in the infrared of the early dawn. And also you would get that infrared light all over your whole entire body, like my little chicken light. And then during the middle of the day, when you've got the blue light from the sky, you have the protective melatonin and antioxidants that mean that your retinas are not going to get fried. They have protective chemicals. And then at the end of the day, the sun goes down, and then you're like, well, let's build a campfire and stare at the campfire, right? This is what a natural human does. And the infrared of the campfire rebuilds your rhodopsin. What is rhodopsin? It is the photoreceptive chemical that makes your retinas able to perceive color and light changes. And rhodopsin can be naturally improved through the consumption of beta carotene. Yes, carrots make your eyesight better. It's also found in bright blueberries, bilberries, as the fighter jet pilots from World War II in Great Britain found out. They had better accuracy in their night vision for dropping bombs on people from eating bilberry jam. And it is regenerative of macular degeneration. So in this time and place, many people are getting these diagnoses. The doctor says you've got macular degeneration. And what really happens is you've got eye fry. You've been staring at the phone and the computer for too many hours without taking enough time to balance out and regenerate your retinas, either in total darkness or in infrared light, staring at a campfire or candlelight. And this is why, like, I know the sun is going down and sometimes my lighting on these videos gets very crazy. I only have incandescent lights. This is an incandescent light right over here is my little fill light. And then I have this really, really bright 300-watt light over here that even is kind of like warm. It's like a big giant stage light type of globe that I love for the winter time because like I need light. But the whole point is I have sanitized my house. So yeah, I live in an apartment here. When I moved in, there were all these LEDs and those little corkscrew compact fluorescents. Get those things out of your life. Doesn't matter if you're a renter, just unscrew those stupid things, save them in your junk drawer, and then when you move out, put them back in the fixtures, all right? No one will know, no one will care. And you're like, Aurora, you know, the federal government of the United States made incandescent lights illegal recently. I'm like, girl, I know. So you have to find them at thrift stores, ordered off of like eBay or some type of vintage. You have to find vintage light bulbs someplace, but they are out there, and find them. And then also when you find them in weird places, like buy them, then give them or trade them to your friends. This is what I do with my friends. I'm like, hey, like I need one of these. Do you have one? And they're like, let me see if I've got it. So yeah, they're like the black market, hot commodity. They're like the nylons and chocolate of our present world, you know, to be able to barter and trade. It's not by accident. It's not by accident that all of the incandescent lights that create an infrared emission, not only infrared in terms of red light that you can see as an optical illumination, but infrared that you can feel as heat. You stare at a campfire, guys, and you also feel the warmth of the campfire penetrating into your body and going into your retinas. And that helps to regenerate the rhodopsin and the other chemicals that are there. Macular degeneration is not just a natural thing. Who knows why this is happening to you? Strangely enough, the entire population is suddenly coming down with a bad case of this. We have no idea why. I'm being mocking of these silly doctors. But hold on. You can also get a $10 pair of these blue light blocking glasses. It might look a little funny. It's getting much more normal. You'll see a lot of people now in their Instagram feeds or whatever. Looks like amber vision. These kind of amber glasses, or sometimes they're perfectly clear. But I really recommend that. Like if you do a lot of being in front of the camera, or if you do a lot of computer work. So there was a time when I was doing a lot of photoshopping for these different people that I'm an art assistant for. And I'm telling you, like imagine one of these big giant screens and it's turned up all the way, full brightness and totally full blue light, like not red shifted because I was doing the Photoshop. And so I had to make sure that the color was correct. Oh my goodness, I felt like I was frying my eyes every day. And at a certain point, I'm just like, like you need to get the glasses or something because it's not healthy and it's not sustainable. So I really recommend to everyone who is doing any amount of work on the computer, get the blue light blocking glasses or do the red shift because it will help you immensely. What is melatonin? Why am I so hot on this? Why do I want you to get the silly looking glasses? Because melatonin is not just a sleep chemical. It's not just something that is going to make you fall asleep more easily, which is what people think. And then they think, oh, I'm going to get addicted and have to eat melatonin to go to sleep every night. I have not experienced that at all. Melatonin is literally a neuroprotective and a cell membrane protective chemical that helps you to prevent injuries, helps you to deal with injuries in your body, is totally anti-cancer. Cancer cannot grow and proliferate in the presence of melatonin. Hold on one moment. I think I might have to bribe my dog with a little bit more cookie. Hold on one moment. So cancer literally cannot grow and proliferate in the presence of melatonin. So if you lived a proper lifestyle, campfires and candles, you would raise your melatonin rates as soon as the sun goes down and have whatever 12 to 14 hours of your body biochemistry just being protected from cancer just through elevated melatonin rates. Most people in our world, and I'm as guilty as any of you, we're looking at the phones all the time. And even I told you, I get into bed, I have my chicken light next to me that's giving me red light. And I'm still using my computer because I have to confess that sometimes I'm doing my emails, watching a video or other stuff. But you know what I've been doing lately is I'll turn on the red light and the red light is like facing me and putting positive red light on me. And I'll put on a video and then I really just listen to the audio and I'll even put like a pillowcase over the screen so that that light is not beaming on me, but I'm able to still hear because I listen to a lot of things that are, educational or whatever it is. So be silly like me. If you're gonna be silly, then block out that because your spouse might be like, why do you have a pillowcase over your iPad? What is going on here? Just explain like, look, we're being silly, but we're protecting ourselves from cancer. So yeah, the answer is minimize your exposure, even though, we all like to watch videos, especially when it's wintertime, because it's just a way of passing the time when the sun has gone down. So supplements, melatonin supplements. So when you take an oral melatonin supplement, very little of it goes into your bloodstream because your stomach acid destroys a lot of it. You also need to know that melatonin is not simply produced by your pineal gland. It is also produced by all of the mitochondria in every cell of your body. So there's blood serum melatonin that is flowing through your body. That is its own particular thing that is released from the pineal gland at night. And then there's melatonin that is intracellular. inside of your cells. It never really leaves. It never really circulates around your whole entire body. But that is part of the anti-cancer protection network and cell-to-cell healing network that's in your body. And that has been measured to be active even during the day. Even when you're outside, they actually measured these athletes that were outside running on a bright sunny day, and they measured the melatonin in the cells of their body, and they found that it was elevated. So you generate melatonin under two circumstances: the quietude and darkness of candles and campfire, and also in the middle of the day, vigorous exercise. Yeah, vigorous exercise, mitochondrial health. And it doesn't circulate through your whole entire body, but what it does is protects your cell membranes, nuclear membranes, and mitochondrial membranes, and helps them to repair their membranes. 5G, the millimeter wave, destroys membranes. It vibrates into your body, it vibrates into those membranes, and it makes them jiggle in unpleasant ways, and it causes destructuring of those body parts. And those body parts are essential for health. So you could imagine like a constant low-level bruising in your body from the millimeter wave exposure, harming your cell membranes, breaking down those boundaries within your body tissues. And higher levels of melatonin are going to help you to be able to withstand the onslaught of the 5G crapola waves. So supplementing melatonin is essential. You will still produce your own natural melatonin. You won't become addicted. It won't make you fall asleep, because I do not fall asleep. When you take it orally, first of all, most of the supplements are like 3 milligrams, but you need 100 times that amount. You need 300 milligrams per day. So even if you got a bottle of gummies, it's like that's like one day, all right? It's not cost effective. And also, the best way to absorb it is actually through suppositories. You guys might know me by now. I'm actually not that much about inserting things into the excretory organ that is at the end of your digestive tract. I'm actually more about like, no, stuff comes out of there. Don't put stuff into there. But other people feel differently. But you can make suppositories. You can buy suppositories. That's great. And my hat is off to you. I want to make a different euphemism. You know, we all celebrate you. If you want to do that, that's great. But I take melatonin and I make it into topical powder, poultices and things like that. So yeah, I even found a supplier of melatonin patches. So what I would suggest if you want to do topical melatonin, that's what I first started doing, was I got powdered melatonin in bulk from bulksupplements.com. And they're a very reputable company where you can get like bulk vitamin C or bulk whatever, you know, whatever type of thing you want. And then either make your own pills or mix it in with skin creams. And so I took some of my favorite just body butter moisturizers and mixed the melatonin into it. And I would put that on at the end of the day. And you guys can tell, like right now, I'm walking on my treadmill slowly, but I do a lot of exercise all throughout my day. And sometimes I run quite vigorously here on my treadmill. And then I often expect, like, I'm really going to be sore the next day. You know, you think like, oh, like my hips or my knees are going to be really sore, or whatever, my muscles. And I put on this topical melatonin, and I'm telling you, I don't feel sore. I feel great. So it really helps with athletic recovery, and so does the red light. And the infrared light and the melatonin, these are both pro-mitochondrial health. And if you want to do one more thing that's really pro-mitochondrial health, eat a pomegranate. So this is me like sitting in bed with my pomegranate, with the red light on me, putting on my melatonin cream, like doing everything I can for my mitochondria, because your mitochondria are your light body. Putting on this wonderful topical. You can get by NOW now. They make a topical that is actually a sublingual that you can put on. You can eat the oil, you can put it on, but I don't get that one because it smells weird and my dog hates that smell. So if you guys have a soulmate who is a dog like I do, because you put on some things, like I don't put on any of this eucalyptus type of stuff. You know, there's all these nice like icy hot skin cream, eucalyptus, peppermint, blah, blah, blah. If I put that on and I get into bed, my dog was like, and she runs away. She's like, you smell terrible. So I can't do that. So yeah, I did a couple of these bottles of melatonin that's got these nice essential oils in it. My dog was always like cringing away from me. So I'm like, okay, I gotta do something better. So I would mix it into my own flavorless skin creams. That works quite well. But if you want to just get the now melatonin, it's like in an alcohol base, and it absorbs very well through your skin. I also found a supplier of these patches, like these transdermal patches that are 300 milligrams each. And they're pretty affordable for what they are. They come mail order, though, from a place through the Philippines. And so I am not worried about it. And what I do is I cleanse them with my crystals before I put them on. I have had only good experiences, but a friend of mine was skeptical, who's like, I don't know what the ingredients are, and I don't trust it because it's from the foreign country and various other items. So that's why I only kind of, tell people about that. I'm not really like sharing links or advocating or anything like that, but there are options. And there's also sublingual sprays and all things like that. Supplement your melatonin, your body will thank you. It is super anti-cancer and also hugely energizing, and it will help with your sleep, regulating your sleep. But the third chemical that your pineal gland is actively engaged in both generating and releasing into your bloodstream is DMT. Everyone's like, oh, we're getting to the good stuff now. DMT is called dimethyltryptamine. So first, I will point you in the direction of very good work. Oh, and if you want good work about melatonin, check out a book called The Miracle Molecule, Melatonin. It is more than just a sleep molecule, by Dr. Liorance. This is a hard one to spell. Lieurance. All right. And has many good informative videos too. So yeah, educate yourself. And the book is worthy to read. So this book on DMT is called The Spirit Molecule, and that is by Dr. Rick Strassman, a scholarly work about people who agreed to be part of a research study where they were given DMT intravenously in a lab setting, and then describing their visionary experiences. So certainly fascinating. DMT is the chemical constituent of the brew that is known as ayahuasca in Central and South America. And ayahuasca is a blend of several different botanical sources that have all been like, there's a vine, a leaf, a root. They all synergize together. They must be processed in exactly the right way and then blended and boiled down. And it makes this thick, I have not ever taken it, bitter, kind of gross thing that people have to drink. And if you do this successfully, the right way to do this, you must prepare yourself beforehand. This is not a disco drug, even though some people have put it into these little vape cartridges and now they use it like a disco drug. But that's not what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be a deep introspective commitment and a spiritual journey, and something that is not for the faint of heart. And you're supposed to follow the dieta, the purification diet, before you do this experience, not only because you have to purge your body of monoamide oxidases, MAO. That's in a lot of fermented foods. Fermented foods are great for you, but they're just not great for some of these biochemical processes that people are trying to do. So you want to not eat fermented foods for the week beforehand, not drink caffeine, not drink nicotine, don't take any of the enes, got it? These alkalines, don't take any of them into your body, and you eat a plain food like a bowl of rice or something like that. And then when you drink your ayahuasca, you purge, you're gonna throw up a lot, you're gonna have diarrhea. Doesn't sound very pleasant, but people look at it as a psychological analog for purging out their unwanted, negative, both emotional and intellectual, come here, let's hug, personality characteristics and issues. Like you're throwing up your family, or your agitations, you're throwing up your anxieties, or whatever it is. I am not a huge advocate for ayahuasca. I'll tell you why. So wait, people drink it, but also sometimes people smoke it. And then more modern, Western industrialized people have created extracts out of it, even purified extracts that have, almost a crystalline look to it. And they even put it into these vape cartridges. And those people are not necessarily following, purification diets and sitting quietly in natural spaces and waiting for their, inner spirit guides to show up. So that's what I mean when I call it a disco drug. It is a drug that can be abused. It can be used poorly. It can be used in a way that is not truly enlightening. Cheeky, we have to wait. We're not ready for going outside unless we pause class. Okay, so wait. You know what? No, we're fine. I will go for maybe another 15 or 20 minutes and then take Cheeky outside. So the concept behind taking DMT, I should even go further. So what was fascinating to me about the Rick Strassman book is that scientist talks about when DMT is naturally released in your body. Your pineal gland does that when your fetus is developing in the womb, what humans call the quickening, the first time that there is movement exhibited in the gestation process. The mother can feel like the baby moved, the baby's alive. That's because that is the moment. It's something like 40 days into the development of the central nervous system when there is a pineal gland that is in the brain that is advanced enough to produce DMT. And the DMT is literally a portal for interdimensional travel. This part of your body generates a molecule that is a portal for interdimensional travel. You're coming from somewhere as consciousness and you're coming into your body. So that is how your consciousness first comes to inhabit your body, open up this portal up here, and then are able to come in as consciousness. And then also your body does not emit natural DMT into your bloodstream until you're ready to leave your body. Usually permanently, it's called death. And that is the other time when you will go through this doorway getting out of here. The body also brain also floods your body with DMT during a near-death experience, where you're kind of like let's say hovering on the threshold. You're like, I'm out of here. I'm kind of out of here. Maybe I'm out of here. I'm kind of back. So it's hacking the system and cheating a little bit to artificially ingest DMT and fool your body and fool your trajectory of your consciousness into thinking like it's time to go somewhere. And so here's my critique of the use of DMT, not only as a recreational drug, but as a drug of spiritual seeking. Because even if you have your mind on in the right way, your intentions are correct, do the purification. You want to take DMT because you want to like go into another world and see outlandish visions and also learn things. But all of that is like very self-centered, very narcissistic, very like, I want it. I want to do stuff for me. And it's not really recognizing like, is this right for you? Do you really deserve access to this information? Because so much of what I talk to you about is in the natural cultivation of your pineal gland and your inner eyesight and your vision, that you receive those visions according to divine intelligence and according to divine schedules. Like if the divine intelligence is like, look, you're going to have to learn about this, this, and this. Please sit down in a meditative state. You will now receive this vision and you will become informed on this topic. That's really different than if you say, hey, universe, I want to know about blah, blah, blah. I'm going to sit down cross-legged on the floor and I'm going to take this DMT. Tell me the truth of the cosmos, man. And I'm being a little facetious in my presentation here, but you understand there's two different things. One is where the educator is setting the curriculum. And one is where the student is setting the curriculum. And maybe it's not appropriate. How do you know you're ready? How do you think that that is the right topic for you? Where do you even get these questions from? It's a little bit far-reaching. It's a little bit of chutzpah. If you know that Jewish word, that means like overreaching. You're asking a lot there. And so here is my critique. Because a lot of people take this DMT, some of them do it right, some of them do it in non-pristine environments, and then there are imposters and tricksters. You're not necessarily getting through the membrane, that is the astral realm, and breaking through into the realm of pure empirical knowledge. So in order to do that, you have to have enough momentum, just like a rocket ship needs enough momentum to blast off and get out of the gravity well and get off the surface of Earth and go elsewhere. Your consciousness needs a lot of momentum to be able to break free of this level of reality and move through the membrane. That is the barrier between this world and higher consciousness worlds. And that barrier is the astral realm. It is the realm where you go to when you sleep. It is the realm of pure thought forms. These thought forms are often arbitrary, grotesquely mutilated, fragmentary, nonsensical. It's the worst neighborhood. It is the crappiest neighborhood in terms of the thought form world. It is not the world of pristine divine architecture. That's where you get through to when you blast through the astral realm and you get into levels of just pure math, where it's like, yep, you don't argue. 1 + 1 = 2. Sit down. You're getting your schooling, right? 1 + 1 = 2. That's it. And then you return back to your body and you're like, oh, 1 + 1 = 2. And you tell everyone, oh, 1 + 1 = 2. I saw it in vision. But hanging out in that astral realm is very different, because you're like, I saw a rainbow butterfly, and then it turned into a snake, and then it turned into my grandmother, and then it turned into a bucket of water, and then I threw up, and then it was a butterfly again. You get it? So we're talking about something that is highly personal, something that relates to your own system of interpretation, something that is fallible, not pristine information of the cosmos. And some people never get past that level. They're seeing all of these elaborate rainbow-colored visions and ascribing huge interpretation structures to them, but not getting to the level that's up here of just pure 1 + 1 = 2, and that's the truth. And then they come back to their body and they return and they're like, I saw this, and this is the truth, and I saw this, and they're erroneous. So I have a critique of people that are blasting off, but not getting all the way there, that are initiating these self-explorations into the lower astral. And then there's tricksters. So the lower astral, it's not just full of sometimes rainbow butterflies, dead ancestors, and grotesqueries. Sometimes it's full of tricksters who will say either I'm God, or I am the Lord of Karma, or maybe I am Jesus Christ, or I am whatever flavor religious figure, or I'm the president of the United States. And then you'll be like, and it will say this, it's not any of those things. It's an insane person in an insane asylum. But it's going to come forward. It's going to be like, oh, someone new is here. You don't know that I'm just crazy. I'm going to come forward and tell you that I'm a spiritual master. And you're going to be like, spiritual master, tell me everything. And the crazy guy is going to be like, okay, I'll tell you everything. Fills your head with nonsense. This is the problem, that there is a whole infiltration of the New Age community via people making themselves vulnerable to these tricksters from the astral realm through the ingestion of ayahuasca and DMT. They think they're doing something to elevate and make their spirit journey faster, and maybe even some spiritual elitism where they're like, this is what I saw on my augmented vision, and I'm greater and better than you. Sometimes that's what these tricksters do. They'll be like, I have a special message for you. You're special. And all of these other things. It might be like this, like, you're God and you're Jesus Christ, and you have a special mission, and you have to go back and tell everybody blah, 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 blah. And be like, okay, great, I'm going to go write a book, blah, 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 blah. And then here's me on my book tour. And you're working for some insane fragmented consciousness that is not actually divine at all. So that happens, and it destabilizes the entire community of seekers, because people come back from their whatever vacation to Peru, or now they do these facilitations even in the United States. And they're like, oh, I have all of these visions, and they share it with their community, and it becomes wildly destabilizing for everyone, because then nobody knows what is really the truth. And they're like, yep, this guy saw it while he was on ayahuasca, and he told me about it, and now I internalize that as my truth. So there's just a lot of destabilization and invalidation of the entire community from the vulnerability. You've got who's the weakest link in your social chain? The weakest link are the guys that are drinking the ayahuasca and then coming back from their visions and then spreading that partial information erroneously and without responsibility to the rest of your community. So there's a very, very real reason why you're supposed to self-cultivate naturally and then have these visions naturally and really treat them with respect and responsibility in how you present them to the world and whom you share them with. And I hope that you recognize that I'm non-hypocritical in what I'm saying, because it's exactly what I do. Yes, I used cannabis in all of these different ways. And also what I see is very accurate. And then my job as a visionary artist is to portray it without a lot of personal interpretation structure, just bring you the true, pure information without adding a lot of me to it, and be able to then make it so that you can see these things even if you haven't been there. And then when you get to go there, you see these inner realms, you're like, oh, that looks exactly like Aurora's painting. And you know you're there, you know you're at the right spot. So if you're not seeing things that look like these perfect structures and polygons, then you can be skeptical. You're like, I think I'm in the lower astral. It doesn't really look like I'm all the way there. And you can feel it too, because lower astral usually feels kind of dark, scary, foreboding, like nightmarish. And the place where I come from and where I receive my visions from is totally clear, smooth sailing, positive feelings. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no boogeyman. That's all at lower astral level. So you get into this other level of like math. That's also kind of like serious business with no monkey business around. So yeah, because 1 + 1 = 2. Like, don't argue with me, kid. This is what it is. And then be accurate, because please don't do this and then send back inaccurate information. So I've had some funny stories. Again, I don't take the DMT because, again, I protect my brain from overstimulation because of epilepsy. But people who have taken it, they told me, and some stories of their friends. So one guy took the DMT like a rocket ship. He smoked it and he went up and he interacted with what he conceived of to be almost like scientist type people of a different dimension that had, you know, an interest in him, kind of like on a clipboard, like, this one is interesting. And then he went back down, because the DMT experience lasts only like a brief amount of time, not even a full hour. So he was like, wow, that was amazing. And blah, blah, blah happened. I'm going back up. So he smokes more and he goes back up. And these guys were like this, you again? Like, we don't want to see you again for another 5 years. And they kind of like pushed him back down. So there are some guardians, and some of them are self-proclaimed, but also some of it is appropriate. Because you got a lot of these people that are kind of like psychedelic tourists that are kind of like looky-loos, like jumping on the psychedelic trampoline, jump on up and be like, what's up here, back down? You know what I mean? Jump on up, what's up here, back down? And that's an abuse. That is not how you're supposed to do these things. It's supposed to be like a once in a lifetime event, and you kind of like have this experience, and they are ready to jump on the trampoline all day. That's an abuse of the system. That's an abuse of your biochemistry. That is not the way you're supposed to be treating yourself. Hold on one moment. Let me also check out my notes. So I know I didn't send out the notes with the intro invite, rather. I had to actually find, I didn't find them in my file. So I had to take these notes yesterday, and I will send them out for you. Good shout out to Terence McKenna. I think he is one of the people who actually popularized not only the use of psilocybe cubensis, the psychedelic mushroom, but also DMT. They both come from the Amazon and the same cultural area that he was studying and that he was working within there. And he talked about experiencing not these kind of like psychedelic overseers, but self-transforming machine elves. He had a completely different experience when he would go into these astral or interplanetary planes, interdimensional planes, and would see these creatures that look actually a lot like my paintings, that were kind of like twisting, morphing, laughing, giggling, turning themselves inside out, turning into things, and that they weren't like guardians, overseers, or like the guys with the clipboards or anything like that. They looked like they were just tumbling tumbleweeds, doing weird stuff. But he talks about that place as being like a place that is populated by these things. Okay, DMT has the word tryptamine in it. Tryptamine is in Turkey. He has all ingested a bunch of tryptamine on Thanksgiving. But you were not tripping. But in order to create DMT naturally, it is necessary to have tryptamine in your diet. So the takeaway from this presentation here today is that you have these endogenous brain chemicals that in order for your body to generate them, you must ingest the precursors. For DMT, the precursor is tryptamine. It's a protein that's found in a bunch of different types of meats and some nuts. And for cannabis, the precursors are different cannabinoids that are found either in milk, meat, eggs, some plants. There's minimal amounts found in some flax and like flax seed and a couple of other plant sources. You got to eat them, and then your body assembles them into the active chemical that it's supposed to be. And let me just make sure that I got. Oh, so yeah, your pineal gland and your reality being determined by which reality station you're tuned in on, the old-fashioned radios that had a knob that you would turn and you kind of go like country, rock and roll, heavy metal, and kind of like moving through these different music stations. And your mind is the same way. Your pineal gland is literally that tuner and that antenna, and your teeth and your dental nerves that go up through your eyes and all the way into your administrative features of your brain are part of that tuning system. And DMT is part of that tuning system. But again, I really advocate that it is severely questionable about whether you should artificially augment your ingestion and experience of DMT while you're alive. Because again, technically that is something that you're really only supposed to be doing when you are coming into the body to be born and when you are done with being alive and you're supposed to die. And I think all of this stuff of jumping on the psychedelic trampoline is a little questionable, possibly confusing to your biochemistry, possibly confusing to your soul, possibly inappropriate. Because I think part of like, if I were a clipboard guy, I'd be like, you're not supposed to be here for another 20 years, go back down. You know what I mean? Like, this is serious stuff. It's about when you are born and when you die, not just when you feel like you're mentally bored and want to get out of the boredom of your life, which is how a lot of people use recreational drugs for escapist fantasies. So I don't advocate for use of it as escapist fantasies. Some people have found it to be effective as a tool for spiritual seeking, but I would say handle with care, use with caution, and also be skeptical of people who have ingested it in their reportage and the things that they share, because I have found like people change when they take this stuff. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I just have to recognize like sometimes it causes changes in them, and not judging anyone, just saying like just recognize that can be a thing. So let me just read. I can tell I squint and make funny faces. Oh, Pedro's going to vote for me for Queen of the World. Thank you very much. Because I have an extensive platform. We're all going to grow cannabis gardens. You're going to drink a juice every day. We're going to have bike paths everywhere. All right. You're going to be able to walk and bike everywhere. Not to worry about your silly car. These are basics of my platform. Rima, thank you for being here. Says Aurora, when you recommend to buy the seeds that are produced the most nutritional cannabis plants for eating. Yes. So I have information for you guys. First of all, I wish I had enough seeds that I could just gift to everyone. It actually is legal in the United States for me to be able to send seeds through the mail to people, but I have my own private stash. Like I actually don't have hundreds of seeds. But so if you wanted to find the best seeds that you could, I would say, as long as you're like in a place where it's legal to do so, talk to people, because most people who grow their own, either as a hobby or as a medicine, have seeds for themselves, and you know that you will be getting stuff that's not genetically modified. There are many online seed banks, again, where it is legal and you can buy these seeds. The seeds are quite expensive. Like it could be $100 for 4 seeds. And out of those 4 seeds, maybe 3 of them will grow. And of those 3 that grow, you're lucky if you get 1 female. So it can be very expensive. And then if you have 1 female, what you do is you would take cuttings and you would clone it and you would proliferate it through cuttings. But you don't know if it's been genetically modified at this point. In the cannabis industry, and it is an industry, like please recognize, 10 years ago, it was still a freedom fighters milieu, where people were like, F the government, I'm gonna go to the mountains, grow a lot of pot, have a pit bull, defend my land. Nobody come up here, all right? That was what they used to do. Now it is totally culturally accepted. And you get your $25,000 license, and you're this fee, and you're that fee, and your cameras, and your UPC codes. This is what this is like, the California industry. And it is no longer where you just grow random seeds that, you throw them on the ground or whatever. These are these seeds that are like very expensive and they've been genetically modified. And some people love it because they're like, oh, this is the lemon skunk diesel, blah, blah, blah. And it makes me feel really silly and stupid, but that's not the stuff that you want to be growing and ingesting. So you can find commercially created seeds, but very difficult to find ones that are not genetically modified, and difficult to find ones that have been selectively bred for spiritual uplift. That a lot of what the breeders are creating these strains for is just for like mental incapacitation. Like imagine the difference between creating a beautiful wine that it tastes really good and has all of these foods that it goes with, as opposed to making the strongest drink you possibly can that will make you feel very, very drunk. Like, I don't know, whatever that is, the strongest, whatever martini that will be straight alcohol. These are two very different things. So mostly what you're getting with cannabis are the types of plants that are just the strongest that people can grow. It's something like 27% THC. And that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the positive profile of all of these types of cannabinoids that are healthy and life producing and not just, not just mind altering. So my suggestion for you, if wherever you live in your community, find other people that might be growers, hobbyists that might have their own strain, and see if they will barter or trade, because mostly that's how we do it. Because I come from the world of cannabis that is not polluted with commercialism. I come from the world of cannabis where people would share it with each other as a gift and as a special magical implement. So this even goes back to upstate New York when it was illegal and when you had lots of danger even at trying to get some. But if you got some, what you would do is you would share it with your friends, but not like be like, I'll give you this and then you give me $5 and you give me $25. Not like that at all. Because it was such a like valuing it as a spiritual tool and really sharing it, trading it, and bartering it. And guess what? I still do that where I live. I grow what I need for myself, and I also help to facilitate for a person I know who's a cancer patient and make sure she gets what she needs. And then if I have extras, I gift it to people. And I really encourage you to do something similar. I feel that it is the people's herb. I feel that it is a gift from God that is here to help us to keep our bodies healthy and to remain sane in a really insane environment. So see if you can align with people who have that value system as opposed to cutthroat capitalism, who will gift or share baby plants or cuttings with you. One of the other things you can do is you can buy viable hemp seed. Hemp is a similar plant to cannabis, same genetics, but different phenotype expression. And it has 0 THC, but lots of CBD. And it's totally legal to ship those seeds and to grow it, but it looks exactly like cannabis. So you just have to make sure that your local law enforcement doesn't think that you're starting some giant pot farm because you're going to grow some hemp seeds, because you can get viable hemp seeds and then sprout them the same way that you would sprout broccoli seeds, either in like trays on your windowsill or in jars or using a cocoa mat or something like that. And then I'm a huge advocate. You eat the plants grow this big and you eat them like little sprouts. They grow over a couple of weeks and then you eat them. So I have a supplier in the United States. I don't know if they will ship to Europe. The problem is you have to buy like 50 pounds. You have to buy a giant 50-pound bag, but you can also find other ones. So places to look for, there's hemp seed that is produced in Poland. So you might find a website in Poland. What you're looking for, keyword search, is viable hemp seed. And you can, this is for dietary reasons. You can get viable hemp seed also, I think, from Ireland if you're in United Kingdom, and then grow it. You can grow it in trays, or you can even have some little like, like soil, but just grow them into the size of baby plants. It doesn't take very long. It takes like a month. And then they get to these little immature stages, and then you cut them off. You can either chew them, but the best thing to do is put them into a blender. Blend them up with some strawberries or something like that. And that's amazing. So yeah, beautiful question, because you wanted to know about the most nutritional. So, viable hemp is actually going to be the best for nutritional, because that stuff has not been genetically modified for excessive THC production. And it has the positive terpenes, the positive raw acidic cannabinoids, and to me, tastes pretty good. And I'm a connoisseur, so I do all these things. So I have the hemp seeds going in my little windowsill garden, and I have my juice cubes, and I have my frozen smoothies. You do all these different things. So yeah, viable hemp seed is a very good thing. If you want to write to me, I can send you some links. And also I have a whole sprouting workshop. If you want to know how to do it, I'll send you the sprouting workshop. But I forget, like if you if I don't receive an email as soon as we finish with this, I'll be like, okay, I'm in another dimension. On to the next thing. I won't necessarily remember that I need to send you the webinar link. So just remind me if you're interested. Please contact me via email and say, I would like the hemp seed sprouting workshop, and I will be happy to gift it to you so that you can learn how to do it and then teach your family, teach your community, share it with your grandma, sprinkle some hemp sprouts on top of grandma's salad. It can only help. Pedro says, speaking of food for the gods, is the manna mentioned in the Bible something good or some kind of, stuff like this? Great question. And we'll talk a lot about the Bible next week in Galactic History. So the manna in the book of Exodus is a supernatural substance and something that I think was created by a technology using type of extraterrestrial race, similar to like Star Trek and the Replicator. You know what I mean? That it was a tasteless food that could taste like whatever you want it to taste like. So whatever was your favorite food, you would think of that, and while you ate the manna, it tasted like that to you. It also had weird qualities. It arrived every morning. It was like the morning dew. You would pick it up every morning, and you had to eat it that day. If you saved it for the next day, it would be rotten instantaneously. So very short shelf life. And then also you were only supposed to take as much as you needed for yourself and your family. You weren't supposed to take a lot of extra, like there's lots of apples, let's get all the apples and then save them for the next, several months. You were not supposed to do that. You were only supposed to take as much as you needed for the day. And so I think that it probably, I don't know if it was infested with mind control technology or anything like that, but I will tell, I have a whole supplemental thing that I recorded about Book of Exodus and the Israelites and how that relates to galactic history. What I will tell you is that the whole entire process of taking the population of people that became the Jewish people out of Egypt and out of that cultural paradigm and making them wander around in the desert and then eventually installing them into the place that would become known as the land of Israel was a process of genetic modification. That group of people that became the Jewish people was genetically modified to be able to hear and perceive an extraterrestrial, a space alien, as if it is God. And again, I'm being hugely insulting by saying this to people about their religion and their deeply held beliefs, but it is part of real talk about what has been done to humanity, the implantation of different tendencies to worship. I wanted to say worship paradigms or contexts, who you're worshiping and in what way. And in this case, I am telling it to you not just to say nanny poo poo, but with the cautionary tale, because I feel that the thing that that group of humans was encouraged to worship was a bloodthirsty, lower level demiurge, because they were also taught how to build a temple that was of specific proportions and how to offer the blood sacrifice of their animals that they killed at the temple, eventually moved to the place we now know as Jerusalem, built a permanent temple there, did mass levels of animal sacrifice, and also circumcision as blood sacrifice. And all that stuff I consider to be not true worship, not true connection to the divine. And really, this is how you feed lower astral entities, with blood. That's not really a positive way of doing things. So I think that this level of the population was scammed. I think that they weren't following a real deity, but that they were scammed, something that kind of got them out of the frying pan into the fire and then sustained them during these levels of vulnerability, and then made good on its promise of giving them a political nation state, but that also caused a huge level of spiritual destabilization with mass sacrifices that are not, none of that is longevity and pro-life. And you can't, it's death system. That was what that is. It was a death worshiping system that I consider to be unhealthy. I'll press pause on that, and I will send out the supplemental galactic history recording because I have to upload that, and you guys can all learn, and then we'll talk about it next week, because I'm sure that will open many cans of worms and push many people's buttons. It's an excellent question. Thank you for your question, Pedro. And Trish says, Aurora, if the pineal gland is blocked and we still seem to be creating our reality, Isn't this reality then part of the matrices, and we're just playing a role and assisting in their creation and action? Like a battery running low may shut down in a bit. Oh, to your physical battery of your iPad, no problem if you need to return and watch later. Excellent question, and big yes. That is the whole point, the hijacking and misappropriation of your natural imaginative powers means that you just continue the status quo, continue to exacerbate the flawed system of consciousness imprisonment and suppression that you came out of. So when your mind is truly awakened and you are truly alive, you are free. You are in freedom. And it doesn't matter if someone tries to erect barriers around you and say, no, you are imprisoned. You are free because you can imagine your way out of it. You can imagine and create and innovate and go in the directions that you want to go. And when you are only partially awakened, like you can create some things with your mind, but you're not really truly in a state of freedom. The things that you're creating are either outgrowths of the flawed world that you are emerging from, or implantations that might be about fear or religious judgment. So much of what is hijacking the pineal gland right now is religious judgment and religious contextualization. And please consider everything that I tell you about the book of Exodus and everything that comes up next week with galactic history and recontextualizing your religion, forms of worship, and conception of God. Consider that to be a purge and a cleansing of your pineal gland. So here is how I describe that. If your pineal gland is like a camera or an apparatus through which light flows. Light is information and pure consciousness and sentience. And the apparatus itself, that, and this also relates to my rant of many hours ago, and thank you for supporting me during my rant. The apparatus or organization that is Christ, because you have this on your forehead and you're connected to a whole network of foreheads. That is Christ. And you are connecting also to like an organization that has a motivation. Like, what is Christ and what do we do with our Christness, Christhood? What motivates us? What makes us do stuff with this? You are here to use it in a concerted effort for, intentional purposes. Oh, I'm trying to not lose my thought. Oh my goodness, you can tell that it's important stuff when I'm about to it's about to go off track like that. No, you are supposed to, I'm going to make sure that I don't lose this. Don't worry. Wow. I know, that's so annoying. Well, that's how you can tell that it will circulate back. Apologies for that. Wait, Trish also goes on to say, from Google, melatonin is metabolized by the liver 90% at first pass, and then mainly excreted in the urine, probably 3,000 grams. So it is actually truthful. Trish is an advocate for urine therapy. The first urine of the morning is actually very high concentrations of melatonin. So that can actually be very positive for your ingestion of that. You can ingest it orally, but you can also ingest it putting on topically. And Trish also says DMT in urine. I'm not sure about whether there's DMT in urine, its concentrations, but I have heard that holotropic breath work creates and generates DMT in your lungs. I haven't done it myself, but I am skeptical of holotropic breath work because I also feel that that is another one of these unhealthy shortcuts that people use to be able to get into an elevated mental state and have a visionary experience, but that it's not necessarily healthy for your brain because it is a hyper oxygenation of your brain. Like anytime you're having too much or too little oxygen in your brain, like that's not that good for your brain. All right, it's not sustainable. I really don't think that people should do this that much, to tell you the truth. But there's whole workshops of people doing this. So just please take care of your brain and don't hurt yourself by breathing in weird ways. But people do it because it brings them into a psychedelic state. Because people are fucking imprisoned, pardon me. People are emphasis imprisoned here. Will do emphasis anything to try to get out of it, including hyperventilate themselves. It's like the toilet wine of prisons, Holotropic breath work is analogous to the toilet wine of prisons. People who are just very desperate for some mental escape from your difficulties. But I don't think that you're really going to get to levels of spiritual attainment through that. But something, yoga, like real yoga, the way that it was practiced in Asia for many, many generations, does awaken and cultivate your pineal gland. And yoga is more than just the physical athleticism of becoming more strong and flexible. It is everything you do in your day. It is everything about waking up in the morning, doing sun gazing, doing the sun salutations, having a rapport with the sun and with light, eating your food in a sensory, intentional way, doing different body postures as an antenna to God, and then doing lucid dreaming or integration techniques even while you are going into your sleep state at night. Like it's a beautiful way. That also, you don't have 60,000 years to be able to go through. And that was actually the original yoga. They were like, yes, you will live 60,000 years. One guy was like this in yoga. He was like, my yoga is to hold my arm up like this for 60,000 years. And he's going to learn and grow spiritually by doing that. And that's great. For that era, when you had that amount of time, the yoga people recognize, the practitioners from Asia recognize that we are in a different time scale now. I don't know if we're in the Kali Yuga or if we're almost there, but like you do not have 60,000 years to be able to manage your ascension and spiritual attainment. Like you have to do this now. You're gonna have to do this fast. So shortcuts galore in what you can do, but please be cautious in your shortcuts. I don't think that you should do too much of weird brain chemistry things to be able to do that. So boy, oh boy, I want to circulate back to the thing that I didn't want to let go away in terms of connecting to the whole network of Christ consciousness that is connected to the activity and perception and projections of your pineal gland as you are part of a larger collective that is imagining reality structures into being. You know, your dark government is an evil thing. And what it does is tries to imagine into being dark and evil stuff and tries to co-opt you and your imaginative capabilities into imagining dark and evil stuff. And that can be war with another nation state, or it can be total nuclear annihilation and incineration of your planet, or it could be many other anti-life, anti-Christ, anti-personal sovereignty agendae. That can be everything from, these like 15-minute cities, quote unquote, smart cities, carbon footprint neutral, blah, blah, blahs, all of that. All of that is hijacking your perception, hijacking your imagination, projection mechanism, and being asked to participate with something that is totally unwholesome and creating a reality that doesn't serve you, but does serve it, right? So you definitely do not want to give over your beliefs and your juice, your passion. Don't give over your passion that emerges from your imagination by contributing towards those negative realities. Definitely. So if you ingest either of these substances, or if you go into a natural meditative state, take that moment to be like in front of the cosmic microphone. I need like a little something. Like here's my little remote control from my walking machine here. Be in front of the cosmic microphone in those moments and be like, look, cosmic structure. Here's what needs to happen. Like there's a lot of effed up stuff. You need to fix this, you need to fix this, you need to fix this, and we need to make more of this and lots less of this. Thank you. I'm done. Like that's it. You need to just consciously communicate your desires and intentions to the fabric of reality so that these positive improvements can be made. And be very mindful about the things that you amplify when you speak into the cosmic microphone. So when you are involved in any of these pineal gland amplifier molecules, be aware that your mind is being amplified, and be impeccable with your thoughts, even in a meditative state. Be intentional about thinking, speaking, and bringing forward, aligning with, and vivifying the reality structures that will be healthy and coherent and life-giving for you and your whole community. Pedro says, change the throwing stars to those plants that get stuck to your clothes and they rip the stuff perfect. Says, love the rant, love the lasagna. Thank you so much. I think that's actually really perfect. So we've moved from the Japanese throwing stars to these types of burrs Like if you have a dog or a cat, you know what I'm talking about. They get out there and they get like stuck on their tail or whatever. So that's actually really good, a way of being able to find allegories for how to creatively, like Pedro, I love your creativity, creative solutions to be able to envision a response to this nano wetware. I'll also make a distinction here. Imagination does not mean arbitrary. Imagination does mean envisionment. I envision something, I imagine it in my mind with my mind's eye, I paint a picture of my mind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm arbitrary or fantastical. Like I can imagine something that has accuracy and is a basis of reality. It doesn't have to be something that is whimsical or just crapola, or that doesn't nonsensical, that makes no sense. As many people think, those are the synonyms of imagination. So imagination is very real and very present. It is a form of envisionment. And the things that you are envisioning are not capricious or whimsical or unmeasured. They can be very accurate and very real. And the envisionment and imagination is the first step towards manifestation. And that is really your battle against this stuff begins with this. That is why this stuff tries to come around this pineal gland in your mind and surround it and incapacitate it. So there are a lot of things. I don't want you to feel hopeless, because there's a lot of hope and a lot of effective things that you can do in response to this, but just know that there are a lot of adversaries pointing at you that you have to overcome just in order to be able to claim that aspect of your anatomy. And Joyce says, Happy New Year. Love you, Aurora. Thank you. You're so welcome. Happy New Year to you too. Again, I want to thank you guys for the rough start and emotional release of the rant earlier today and moving into more positive territory. And thank you for being with me. This has been the 2023.2 semester. So what we're doing is wrapping everything up. So I want to thank you so much to everyone for being with me on this very, very long journey. Next week, 2 p.m. will be the very long, probably marathon, 4 or 5 hour long presentation about galactic history, that everything, including this stuff that's being perpetrated in your environment right now and how to respond to it effectively, but also backstory of AI and how that AI is woven into human religion, even specifically Judeo-Christianity, and how to respond to it effectively. And then so that's next week, lesson 18. And then after that, we've got wrapping up, which is pretty much lasagna and moving into the future. And then we'll start the semester again. So that's what's coming in January. And again, to reiterate, if you are in my class, you don't have to pay tuition again. If you have already paid tuition, that is absolutely sufficient. If you ever wanted to contribute more, I'll always receive in gratitude. But I value your participation and commitment as students and love that people have been in my class for many, many years. So please, you can continue to stay on board. There's no obligation. There's no requirement. You don't have to pay anything extra unless you want to. Stay on board if you're open to it, and I'll keep you on the email list and I'll keep you informed of what's going on. And then new people, because I think we have some people who just have come on board within the past couple of weeks. You've been doing great because you kind of are catching the tail end. You're catching the big reveal at the end of the quote unquote TV show where you're like, like, I didn't want to spoil it for you, but if you guys ever watched that show Lost, then you got the big reveal at the end. Do you want me to do it for you? Okay, turn it off if you don't want to have it be spoiled. But it's like, oh, you mean all along we all died in that plane wreck and now we've been in this island that's actually representative of our afterlife? Yeah, that's what's been going on. And let's say that's the first episode that you watched. You're like, this sounds bizarre. Let's go back to the beginning and find out all of the other things that led us up to this culmination. This is me. This is what's going on. So you're going to get the galactic history stuff next week and be like, wow, like that's the big reveal of everything that's effed up that's been going on in our lives. Yes. Then you will want to turn back to level 1, lesson 1, and get all of the backstory, because that's where you will really find the nourishing gold of what these structures are, how they relate to your body, how you can turn them into, not turn them into, but perceive them as tools of aspects of spiritual empowerment. You get a lot of empowerment from knowing how the world is shaped and how those energy patterns flow, and also how that energy pattern is a precursor to this energy pattern, flying rainbow lasagna, and how you can actually do the flying rainbow lasagna and what it is all about. And when you get less than 18, then you get the whole picture, because you find out why flying rainbow lasagna is necessary. Why do you need this? You have a giant bucket and a giant mop. Why? Why? Because you have a giant pile of muddy footprints, and the pile of muddy footprints is galactic history, where these things come from. So there are also many sources of galactic history. I used to save it for the end of the semester because it was a secret, not secret, but it was proprietary, that I was not going to talk about it with people unless you were formally enrolled, because I did not want people to jump out a window, because it can be very distressing when you start to find out about all this stuff. But that was 10 years ago. And I'm happy to say this conversation has escaped its confinement. Like, everybody talks about this stuff. It is not secret stuff at all. You've got everybody from David Icke and who's that guy? Alex Jones, and all of these different people that are essentially talking about these concepts. So it is in your cultural viewpoint, and not something that is going to be so worldview shaking that it could cause self-destructive behavior. So I feel a lot more comfortable now about just having the cat fully out of the bag, and let's just talk about these topics. And also, I am strong enough in my own self-defense capabilities to be able to be fully articulate and not to be concerned about blowback from the entrenched power structures that are like, huh, troublemaker, talking too much, shut your mouth. Because they've tried to do that. And clearly I have found ways to effectively fight back. So part of what I teach about with galactic history is self-defense from negative thought entities. And the things that I did from 10 years ago, if you tried them now, remember in Harry Potter, when they're going to fight against some really, really evil things. And he's like, how about we do blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's stupid. That's a first-year spell. You don't use that spell against these guys. That is how I feel when I go back and I look at my initial stuff about how to fight back against these guys from 10 years ago. I'm like, that's an entry-level spell. Like, that is not going to work in the levels of evolution that this spiritual battle has happened over the past 10 years or so. So yeah, you need to get the upgrade, and you need to find out what are the most effective present level, not spells, but supernatural approaches, pure energy level approaches to being able to respond to this. And I remember 2 years ago, I was telling you guys all about implant removal and entity removal and working with a particular practitioner. But now I have figured out the flaw in that, and I will tell that to you now and tell that to you next week also. But the flaw in that system of vacuuming out and removing these entities was the presumption that it was finite. It's like clearing out this stuff. If I said, yeah, you just vacuum it out and then boom, it's gone. It's like if I told you brush your teeth and then you're done. Go live a good life. Never going to get a cavity again. It's like, no, actually, you have to brush your teeth every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And the dental cavity makers, they never go away. This thing that you're fighting against, like, it's, I don't want to say infinite, but it can keep on coming. It's not like if you vacuum it up and then you're like, that's it, I'm done. Now I'm finally clean and it's not going to come back. Like, if you spend 24 hours a day vacuuming it up, then you would still have to spend 24 hours a day the next day vacuuming up, but you have no life. And I don't advocate for that. So the practitioner that taught me about that was erroneously presuming that, these negative thought entities, fragments, or whatever you want to call them, that there's a limited amount of them. And that at a certain point, like if you're losing soldiers on the battlefield, it's like, okay, let's stop because we're losing all of our soldiers and we'll stop attacking this person. That's not going to happen. They are not like embodiment soldiers that have a limitation of how much cannon fodder they can throw at you. They can keep on generating and making more and more demonic trash, erroneous astral poop characters. There's not really a limit to that. So you have to fight smart. You can't just continually fight against it because it's just going to keep on throwing poop at you. You gotta fight smart. So that's why also I don't laugh at, but I scornfully look at and assess the things that I was like, oh, that from 2 years ago. I'm like, oh, that's not going to work at all. It's got tons of flaws in there. So yeah, I'll give you the most updated, effective approaches for you to be able to not only fight back and not only be not only be antithesis to its thesis, but to be proactive. You're not supposed to just stand there and wait for the punch and then either block the punch or fight back. You're supposed to be able to anticipate that the punch will even happen and do things to restructure reality so that you don't have to be punched in the face, and so that no one has to be punched in the face. So I got good stuff for next week. It'll be wonderful. Pedro says, thanks for the reminder, Joyce. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy, healthy, peaceful New Year in freedom. And of all the things that I was talking about informally before this class began, the cosmic fabric stress test, this can only go on for so long. I really do predict that there will be a necessary rectification, recalibration within the next couple of weeks, because you can't just keep on being like endlessly poised, endlessly in this imbalanced state of something's almost going to happen. Something's going to happen. Pedro also says, hearing it from you and from Alex Jones made me pay attention and began understanding the whole picture. Thank you for that. And I'll say Alex Jones, two things about this guy. He's a limited hangout. He gives some information, but not all the information. He's totally part of the entrenched power structure. And he's got something that is an overlay that's not him living in his throat that comes out when he speaks. So when you hear him speak, there's a guy, a man, then there's also a something else that is not him. And you just have to be really, really cautious, because the something else frequency can enter into your mind and affect your consciousness on a subliminal level beyond your conscious willpower. And it is a perceived consent, because you turn on his show. You're like, do you want to listen to the guy, or do you want to listen to the weird, it's like a frog-like item that lives in his throat or whatever it is? That's why I don't listen to his stuff. I literally cannot listen to his videos or anything that has audio, but I am aware of his presence and the many hyperbolic things that he talks about, but I won't listen to his voice. So yellow caution flags on that guy and his voice. And there's a couple of other people in the New Age community that I feel a similar aversion, that I literally can't listen to their voice. And former President Donald J. Trump, I can't listen to his voice either. It's not just mere distaste. There's something else that is like in his voice box that is speaking through him. Just real talk here, guys. Just real talk. Okay. Whew. It's been a big day. I think we're going to take Cheeky outside, even though it's dark already. We'll see if she wants to go outside and get a little exercise or something like that. And thank you for being with me this semester. Thank you for coming with me so far. Thank you for being open to all the things that I have to share with you. And thank you for your own efforts, because your efforts do matter. Like your comprehension, learning new things, being open to new ideas, the transformations and personal growth that you go through inside, healing and restructuring your own traumas, life dynamics, family dynamics, and then also finding effective ways to fight back or respond to the unfairnesses in your world. You matter and you make a big impact. And I thank you for your efforts and your disciplines and your determination, and for even remaining positive and not allowing the swamps of despair to bring you down. So thank you for that. And thank you for seeing me on my journey, and for your friendship and caring. Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Wait. I have to look on the calendar. Will we be back before New Year? What's the date? No. So actually, class next year is going to be January 3rd. Happy New Year. I get to use my joke. See you next year. See you next year, guys. Oh, I'll change this like